Welcome. I am truly grateful to have you here. Please, make yourself comfortable and take your time. This story was crafted with care, dedication, and deep respect for your attention. I hope it brings you joy, reflection, and perhaps even a touch of nostalgia. Once again, thank you for sharing a moment of your day with me. The year is 1347. You wake up in the middle of a medieval winter, not to the familiar chill of stone, but to a suffocating warmth that makes the air thick and heavy. The first thing that assaults you is the smell. It's a cloying, sweet stench, like overripe fruit mixed with something acrid and metallic, a desperate attempt to mask an underlying rot. You taste it, a bitter tang on your tongue, even before your eyes fully adjust. You feel the rough wool of your blanket, heavy and damp, sticking uncomfortably to your clammy skin. You push yourself up, your muscles aching as if you've been pressing stones all night, not just sleeping. The single beeswax candle on the rickety wooden table flickers erratically, casting long, dancing shadows across the cramped, low-ceilinged room. You squint, trying to distinguish familiar shapes in the gloom. A worn wooden chest, a half-finished loom, a crude carving of a saint. But the air itself seems to shimmer, blurring the edges of everything, making the small space feel even more claustrophobic. Dust motes dance in the weak light, illuminated briefly before vanishing into the oppressive haze. Then you hear it, a low, guttural moan from beyond your thin wattle and daub wall, quickly hushed by a frantic hand. This is followed by the soft, desperate scuff of hurried footsteps, retreating into the dawn. A cold, sharp fear, like a blade, cuts through the humid air. You know that sound, that desperate silence that follows. It's the sound of someone trying to hide the inevitable, trying to maintain a pretense of normalcy against a tide of encroaching horror. It's the village's collective gasp for breath, stifled. You move, driven by a primal need for air that isn't heavy with the scent of cloves and death, toward the small, parchment-covered window. Your fingers brush against a small clay vial on the table, its surface slick with condensation. Inside, a precious mixture of strong spices, cinnamon, cardamom, frankincense, ambergris, meant to ward off the pestilence. You raise it to your nose, inhaling deeply, but the fragrance, usually comforting, now feels like a hollow deception. A futile gesture, a placebo against oblivion, bought at an exorbitant price from a fleeing merchant. You remember the old woman from yesterday, her eyes wide and haunted with a terror you hadn't fully grasped then. She was clutching a tarnished crucifix, whispering fervent prayers to a God who seemed to have turned his face away from their suffering. Where was the comfort, the promised intervention, the miracle that should surely come in such a desperate hour? You find yourself questioning the very air you breathe, the heavy, silent indifference of the heavens, echoing louder than any human scream. It's a silence that chips away at the foundations of everything you thought you knew. You step to the heavy wooden door, your hand hovering over the cold iron latch. Beyond it lies not just the familiar village square, but the pervasive dread, the unseen enemy. You feel a faint tremor beneath your feet, not from an earthquake, but from the slow, relentless march of something invisible. Something that steals breath and hope from every hearth. You take a final uncertain breath within the small sanctuary of your room, the mixed sense of fear, burning herbs, and something far more sinister pulling you forward. You pull open the door, braced for what awaits, knowing that the world outside has profoundly changed. If this story resonates with you, please like and subscribe. I'm curious, where in the world are you listening from, and what time is it there? Share in the comments. You pull open the door, and the world outside immediately clamps down on you, not with force, but with an unsettling, profound quiet. The morning air, though cool, carries a different kind of dampness, a chill that seeps deeper than mere winter. It smells not of fresh earth or wood smoke, but of that same cloying sweetness, now tinged with something metallic and faint, a ghost of old blood lingering on the breeze. It clings to your clothes, to your hair, a constant, unwanted companion. You step onto the cobblestones, your boots sounding unnaturally loud in the deserted street. The usual morning symphony, the rhythmic clang of the blacksmith, the baker's shouts, the distant bleating of sheep, children's laughter, has vanished. It's replaced by a silence so vast it presses against your eardrums, making your own breathing sound like a tempest. The very air feels heavy, pregnant with unasked questions and unspoken fears. You scan the familiar market square. Empty. The stalls that usually overflow with vegetables, woven cloth, and fresh fish stand stark and vacant, like skeletal remains. A child's wooden cart lies overturned near the well, its wheels frozen in mid-spin, forgotten in a sudden flight. No one is haggling, no one is gossiping, no one is even sweeping their stoop. The windows of the half-timbered houses are shuttered tight, like closed eyes, creating a facade of deep, uneasy sleep. Then you see her, a woman shrouded in a heavy, dark cloak, hurrying across the square, her head bowed. She clutches a small bundle to her chest as if protecting a fragile, precious secret. Her steps are too quick, too hushed, her body language a desperate plea for invisibility. She doesn't look up, doesn't acknowledge your presence, simply vanishes into a narrow alleyway, leaving behind only the faintest whisper of fear in her wake. You follow her with your gaze, feeling the weight of her unspoken terror settle upon you. A short while later, you spot a priest. He moves with a weary, almost shuffling gait, his shoulders hunched, not with the usual posture of spiritual authority, but with a palpable burden. His simple woolen habit is smudged with what looks like ash and dried mud. He carries no cross, no holy water, just his own body, moving towards the heavy oak doors of the church. The doors, usually wide open, inviting solace, now stand partially ajar, revealing only a cavernous darkness within. No hymns escape, no reassuring murmurs of prayer, only the distant, rhythmic clang of the church bell, a solemn, unbroken toll that marks not a joyous calling, but a sorrowful passing. Each clang is a fresh wave of confirmation, a chilling message carried on that metallic breeze. You stand there, an unexpected witness to this new reality, feeling the invisible presence of the unseen passenger. It isn't a person or a beast, but a pervasive dread, a chilling uncertainty that has seeped into the very stones of the village. It has stolen the sounds, the smiles, and the simple, everyday certainties, leaving behind only the hushed movements of the living and the deafening silence of an absent God. You feel a profound shift, a silent rupture in the bedrock of your world, where faith itself becomes a fragile, flickering candle in an overwhelming darkness. You step through the threshold of the humble cottage, and the cold air of the street retreats, replaced by a suffocating heat, thick and sweet like fermenting fruit, but underscored by something else. A metallic tang you now recognize as the scent of sickness, of despair. Your eyes sting slightly from the acrid smoke of dried herbs smoldering in a cracked clay pot on the hearth, a desperate attempt to purify the air, to ward off the invisible assailant. It's a battle you know is already lost. The room is dim, the window shuttered tight against both the cold and the prying eyes of the outside world. Here, the silence is different from the square. It's a strained, shallow quiet, punctuated only by the ragged, uneven rhythm of labored breathing. You move deeper into the room, your boots soft on the packed earth floor, and your gaze settles on the figure huddled beneath a threadbare blanket on a straw pallet. It's Thomas, the baker's young apprentice, his usually rosy cheeks now stark white against the dark pillow. You approach cautiously, your heart thrumming a frantic rhythm against your ribs. The air around the pallet feels even warmer, radiating a fierce, unnatural heat. You reach out, your fingers trembling slightly, and touch his forehead. The skin is burning, dry and hot as if he's been left out in the summer sun. He shifts, a low groan escaping his lips, his eyes fluttering open for a moment. They are glassy, unfocused, staring through you, not at you, filled with a primal fear that transcends simple pain. He doesn't recognize you. He doesn't even see you. Then you see it. On the side of his neck, just beneath his jawline, a dark blotch the size of a pigeon's egg. It's swollen, taut, and angry, a deep, bruised purple that seems to absorb the meager candlelight. Around its edges, a faint blush of red, but the core is an unforgiving black. The black rose, they call it, blooming grotesquely upon the skin. A macabre blossom that portends only death. You avert your gaze for a split second, a shudder running through you, a profound sense of helplessness washing over your every fiber. You remember the priest from the square, his bowed head, his weary step. He would offer last rites, perhaps a whispered prayer for comfort. But the truth is stark and brutal in this dim room. There is no cure, no healing touch, no miracle. You reach for the linen cloth you carry, dipping it in the cool, clear water from a small bucket near the pallet. The water itself feels like a precious, fleeting comfort. You gently press the damp cloth to Thomas's burning forehead, trying to soothe the inferno within him. His breath hitches, a weak, almost imperceptible sigh of relief, or perhaps just a deeper surrender. As you sit there, watching the terrible dark flower bloom on his young skin, feeling the relentless heat of his fever, a heavy quiet descends upon you. It's the silence not of peace, but of profound absence. Where is the comforting hand of God in this moment of unspeakable agony? Where are the divine words, the promised solace? There are no thunderbolts, no visions, no miraculous interventions. Only the rasping breath of a dying boy, the persistent, sweet stench of sickness, and the cold, unyielding reality of a world abandoned to its suffering. The black rose on his skin is not just a mark of death. It's a stark, painful question etched into the flesh. A question about a silent heaven. You sit by Thomas's pallet, the heat from his small body radiating against your palm, a relentless, living furnace. The black rose on his neck seems to pulse, growing subtly larger, darker, with each shallow, rattling breath he takes. You recall the ancient teachings, the doctors, pronouncements of the humors, blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile, flowing through every person, determining their health, their temperament. They say the plague is a corruption of these humors, a profound imbalance, a putrefaction from within. You look around the small dim room. On a stool nearby, a cluster of crude instruments sits. A small, sharpened blade, dulled with age and use, lies next to a clay cup, once used for drinking wine, now reserved for collecting the dark, viscous liquid of a feverish body. There's a bundle of dried leeches, shriveled and inert, waiting to be applied, to draw out the bad blood, to restore balance. You feel a wave of revulsion, but also a desperate primal urge to try anything, even these ancient brutal rituals. You pick up a heavy, cool stone that was heated by the fire, meant to be placed on the bubo, to draw out the poison. You press it gently against Thomas's inflamed skin, and he flinches, a soft, involuntary cry escaping his lips. His body arches slightly, an animal response to the pain. You watch, feeling utterly useless, as his skin remains stubbornly hot, the bubo unrelenting. The stone cools quickly, offering no relief, only a fleeting, superficial attempt at comfort against an internal conflagration. You remember being told of concoctions, bitter and foul, meant to purge the body, to force the corrupted humors out. You imagine the taste, the violent retching, the body's desperate struggle, only to yield to the relentless progression of the disease. It's a battle fought within the confines of the flesh, a body turning against itself, its very essence becoming a prison. You see Thomas's chest rise and fall, a fragile bellows, struggling against unseen chains, against an invisible tormentor that has hijacked his very being. The silence in the room deepens, broken only by Thomas's increasingly shallow breaths. You watch him, seeing not just a boy, but a microcosm of all human vulnerability, a testament to the fragile edifice of life, the grand theories of humors, of celestial alignments, of divine judgment. They all crumble in the face of this raw, agonizing reality. The body, once a temple, now a cage of suffering, its very functions corrupted, its life ebbing away with no grand intervention, no whispered cure from above. It leaves you with a stark, chilling question. If the divine order controls all, what meaning does this internal chaos hold? This agonizing, inexplicable breakdown of the human form, left to struggle in such solitude, echoes the deeper, haunting question of a God who seems to have utterly withdrawn from the very fabric of existence. You stand in the village square. The midday sun, usually a source of warmth and life, now feels like a cold, indifferent eye watching from above. The silence persists, broken only by the distant, mournful tolling of the church bell. It's a sound that used to signal community, prayer, a rhythm to daily life, but now it has become a relentless, solitary drumbeat of sorrow. Each clang echoes not a gathering, but a departure. Each reverberation carries the weight of a life extinguished, a family fractured, a hope diminished. You feel a strange tremor in the air, a vibration that hums through the cobblestones and up into your bones. It's not from a cart or the earth, but from the cumulative weight of unspoken grief, a collective sorrow hanging heavy in the atmosphere. The air still carries that cloying, sweet stench, now familiar, a constant, unwanted perfume of decay, and the desperate spices trying to mask it. You pull your woolen cloak tighter around you, not against the cold, but against the chilling omnipresence of loss. You walk towards the church, drawn by the insistent rhythm of the bell. The heavy oak doors, which you saw ajar just yesterday, are now wide open, revealing a gaping maw of darkness. You step inside, and the sudden drop in temperature is startling, a stark contrast to the oppressive warmth of the sickbeds. The air is cool, damp, and smells of old stone, dust, and faintly of incense. A lingering ghost of prayers offered long ago. The vast nave stretches before you, usually filled with the faithful, but now eerily empty. The pews stand in silent rows, polished smooth by generations of hands, awaiting congregations that no longer gather. Candles, usually flickering in devotion, are unlit, their wicks black and brittle. Stained glass windows, depicting vivid scenes of saints and miracles, seem dull, their colors muted by the pervasive gloom. The light that does filter through them casts strange, elongated shadows that dance like specters on the cold stone floor. You find the source of the persistent tolling. In the bell tower, the rope hangs still. The bell swings, yes, but not from a human hand. The wind, whistling through the empty arches, catches the massive bronze, swaying it just enough to strike the clapper against its rim, a hollow, accidental lament. There's no one there, no devoted sacristan, no weary priest. The bell rings itself, a mechanical wail in a deserted holy space, a profound echo of an unasked question. You stand in the desolate church, surrounded by the weight of unoffered prayers, the silence of a God who seems to have abandoned his house. The wind chime bell rings on, a sound that should bring solace, but instead only deepens the mystery. It asks, who is listening? Who answers when the only sound is the wind, and the only prayer is the lonely clang of a bell? Ringing for a departed soul no one is left to mourn. This silence, this empty space, feels more profound than any spoken word, leaving you with a haunting echo of a world where heaven itself has turned away, leaving humanity to its own desperate, unheard pleas. You leave the empty bell tower, the wind's mournful clang still echoing faintly in the high arches. The heavy silence of the nave now feels less like peace and more like a void. Your footsteps are the only sound as you walk down the central aisle, past the cold, unlit candles. The air grows heavier with each step, laden with the unsaid, the unheard. You approach the side altars, once vibrant with small offerings and fervent prayers. Here stand the statues of the saints, carved from wood and stone, painted in faded hues. Saint Sebastian, riddled with arrows, a patron against plague. Saint Roche, his leg bared to reveal a bubo, a protector of the sick. Saint Giles, whose gentle hand once healed. You gaze up at them, their painted eyes fixed on some distant, unseen heaven. You reach out and touch the rough, cold stone of Saint Sebastian's robes. His face, usually depicted with stoic suffering, now seems to wear an expression of profound, detached indifference. There are no fresh flowers at his feet, no lit votives, no kneeling figures whispering desperate pleas. Only dust motes dancing in the faint light, settling on his unmoving form. You remember the stories etched into your mind since childhood. Tales of miraculous cures, of divine intervention, of saints interceding with God on behalf of the suffering. You recall seeing countless villagers kneeling here, pressing their foreheads against these very pedestals, their lips moving in earnest supplication. They believed. You believed. Their faith was a vibrant, living thing, a bridge between this earthly sorrow and heavenly solace. But now, The bridge feels broken. The saints stand mute, cold and unyielding. Their painted eyes offer no comfort, no recognition of the pervasive grief that blankets the land. Their still hands, once extended in blessing, offer no healing touch. Their silence is a tangible thing, a heavy cloak draped over the entire village. It's not just the absence of their voices, but the absence of their power, their supposed connection to the divine. You lift your gaze to the vast vaulted ceiling, then back to the silent figures. Where are their miracles now? When the need is greatest, when the black rose blooms on every street, have they too turned away? Or were their powers merely a comforting story, a fragile illusion shattered by the brutal reality of an indifferent pestilence? The silence of these saints is a profound and unsettling revelation, a gaping hole where comfort and hope once resided, leaving you to wonder if the heavens themselves have simply forgotten the desperate pleas rising from a dying world. It's a silence that echoes louder than any bell, revealing a devastating truth about forgotten intercessions. You walk down a narrow, shadowed lane, the cobblestones slick with a persistent dampness, not from rain, but from a chill that seems to emanate from the very earth. The air here is sharper, carrying the familiar, cloying sweetness, but also a distinct tang of old wood smoke and something else, a faint, almost metallic scent that you now associate with lingering illness. Your gaze falls upon a cottage, smaller than most, its windows not merely shuttered, but entirely boarded over with rough, unpainted planks. Across its heavy oak door, 2 thick beams are nailed in a stark, desperate X, a grim symbol warning all to keep away. You approach the sealed house, your footsteps unnaturally hushed on the damp ground. The silence around it is different, heavier than the square's emptiness or the church's desolation. It's an active, watchful silence, as if the very air holds its breath. You notice a small dried bouquet of wild herbs, rosemary, rue, and a sprig of withered lavender, pinned clumsily to the doorframe, a pathetic, futile charm against the invisible enemy lurking within. Your fingers brush against the rough wood of the crossed beams, feeling the cold, unforgiving surface. You press your ear against the thick, sealed door, straining to hear anything from inside. At first, there is only the frantic thrumming of your own heart against your ribs. Then, a faint sound, so soft you almost mistake it for your imagination. It's a low, almost imperceptible moan, a choked gasp, quickly followed by what sounds like the dull thud of something heavy falling onto straw. The sounds are not coherent, not human conversation, but fragments, echoes of suffering contained. You lean closer, trying to discern more, your breath catching in your throat. The air, though sealed, seems to carry a concentrated warmth, a tangible presence of fever and struggle. You imagine the dimness within, the same heavy heat you felt at Thomas's bedside, the creeping darkness. You picture bodies writhing on pallets, eyes wide with delirium, the black roses blooming unchecked on skin unseen by the sun. The silence stretches again, punctuated only by a faint, rhythmic scratching, like a tiny creature gnawing at wood, or perhaps the restless twitching of a fevered limb against a rough blanket. You pull back, a shiver running down your spine that has nothing to do with the cold. This house, sealed from the world, is not just a prison of flesh, but a tomb of hope. No one enters, no one leaves. Prayers offered within these walls, desperate pleas whispered to an absent God, are absorbed by the rough timber and thick mud, never reaching beyond. This isn't just a physical barrier, it's a spiritual one. It forces you to confront the unsettling truth that when humanity is at its most isolated, most vulnerable, the heavens themselves seem to mirror that very isolation, leaving only a haunting echo of unheard cries within a sealed existence. This confined suffering, unacknowledged, leaves a deep, unsettling mark. You move away from the sealed house, its heavy, silent presence a knot in your stomach. The faint, metallic tang in the air seems to sharpen, almost like the scent of fear itself. You turn down another lane, narrower still, where the houses lean into each other, their upper stories almost touching, casting the alley in perpetual gloom. Here, the silence is even more profound, a suffocating blanket woven from absence and dread. You notice it immediately. On the door of a small, timber-framed dwelling, a large cross has been hastily painted in bright red ochre. It's stark against the weathered wood, crudely drawn, yet carrying an undeniable chilling authority. Beneath it, in shaky white chalk, are 3 simple words: Lord, have mercy. You stop, a cold dread creeping up your spine. This is not a symbol of faith or comfort. It's a brand, a mark of condemnation, a sentence passed by an unseen judge. You reach out, your fingers hovering inches from the rough, crimson paint. The pigment looks fresh, still slightly wet in places, as if applied just moments ago. You imagine the hand that painted it, trembling, desperate. This isn't just paint on wood. It's a visual representation of the social cage, a decree of isolation and abandonment. This red cross means the inhabitants are sick, and by extension deemed unclean, cursed. They are to be left to their fate, sealed off from community, from help, from hope. You recall the whispers, the fear in people's eyes when a house was marked. How neighbors would suddenly turn away. Friends would avert their gaze. Families would flee, leaving their kin to face the pestilence alone. It's a swift, brutal judgment, delivered not by law, but by terror. The Red Cross isn't just a barrier against disease, it's a barrier against humanity itself. You press your palm flat against the door, feeling the cold, rough wood beneath your skin. No sound escapes from within, not a moan, not a gasp. Only the overwhelming, echoing silence. This stillness speaks volumes, more profoundly than any wailing could. It speaks of the finality of abandonment, of a despair so absolute it has swallowed all cries. It speaks of families torn apart, not just by sickness, but by the desperate need for self-preservation, a terrible, unspoken betrayal. As you stand before this marked house, the Red Cross an unblinking eye of judgment, you feel the profound weight of this social cage. It's a structure built not of stone and mortar, but of fear, and the desperate need to survive, even at the cost of compassion. This is the dark side of a world where God's silence has left humanity to forge its own cruel rules. It's a chilling reminder that when the divine seems to withdraw, the very fabric of human connection can unravel, leaving you isolated, branded, and utterly alone to face an invisible enemy that destroys not just bodies, but the soul of community. You stand in the narrow lane, the Red Cross on the door behind you a burning ember in your memory. The pervasive silence is suddenly, violently, shattered. From the main road, the distinct rhythmic rumble of wooden cartwheels on cobblestones grows rapidly louder, cutting through the heavy air like a jagged knife. It's not the familiar, slow pace of a farmer bringing goods to market. This sound is urgent, frantic, driven by a desperate haste. You move quickly, drawn by the sound, towards the entrance of the lane. As you emerge, the scene on the main road assaults your senses. A chaotic procession of carts, hastily loaded, barrels past. Their wooden wheels clatter and groan, kicking up dust and loose stones. The air is filled with the frantic whinnies of horses, urged on by sharp whips and desperate cries. You taste the sudden grit of dust in your mouth, dry and acrid. You watch as the carts speed by, overloaded with bundles of clothes, sacks of grain, simple wooden chests. Each cart is a microcosm of a life uprooted, its contents crammed haphazardly, a desperate attempt to salvage what little remains. You see faces, etched with a mixture of terror and grim determination. Mothers clutch children tightly, their faces pale and drawn. Fathers, their eyes wide with panic, whip their horses with a brutal urgency, leaving behind the only home they've ever known. One cart in particular catches your eye. It's smaller, drawn by a single skittish pony. On it, a young woman, her hair disheveled, stares back at the village with an expression of profound, tearless grief. Her hand reaches out, a yearning gesture towards the houses they are abandoning, a silent farewell to everything familiar, everything loved. Her gaze lingers for a moment on the church steeple, then shifts, scanning the deserted streets as if searching for someone, or something, that isn't there. The rumble of the wheels fills your ears, a deafening sound that drowns out all other thoughts. It's the sound of a community fracturing, of the social fabric tearing apart under the unbearable strain of the plague. These aren't just people fleeing a disease. They are fleeing a world that has turned hostile, a God that has seemingly abandoned them, leaving them to their own desperate, fragmented solutions. Each fleeing cart is a testament to the collapse of order, of faith, of communal responsibility. You feel the ground vibrate beneath your feet with the passing carts, a deep, unsettling tremor that mirrors the instability within your own heart. This flight isn't just physical, it's a spiritual exodus, a rejection of a place where prayers go unanswered and miracles cease to exist. The rumble of the fleeing carts is a powerful, undeniable declaration. The old ways, the old certainties, are being left behind, carried away on the winds of desperation, leaving only a profound, haunting question about the true cost of survival when all else falls silent. You grasp the cold, smooth weight of a silver coin in your palm, its familiar heft usually a symbol of security, of exchange, of influence. But here, in this crumbling world, it feels suddenly insignificant, a hollow promise. The faint scent of stale incense and desperation clings to the air, thick and cloying around you. The hurried footsteps you hear are no longer of those fleeing, but of those moving with a desperate purpose, seeking solace in a transaction. You turn a corner, emerging into a small, desolate courtyard beside the church. Here, a small crowd, perhaps a dozen souls, huddles. Their faces are drawn, their eyes shadowed with a profound weariness, but within that weariness, a flicker of desperate hope. You see an elderly woman, her hands gnarled with age, fumbling with a small pouch. With trembling fingers, she extracts a copper coin, polished smooth by countless years of use, perhaps a lifetime's meager saving. She holds it out, her gaze fixed on a makeshift shrine. It's a crude affair, a weathered wooden crucifix propped against the church wall, surrounded by wilting wildflowers and melted stumps of cheap tallow candles. Beneath it, a small, worn wooden bowl sits, already containing a scattered handful of coins, copper, tin, even a glint of tarnished silver. You watch as the old woman carefully places her coin among them, her lips moving in a silent, fervent prayer. Her eyes, filled with an ancient, pleading light, remain fixed on the impassive wooden Christ. Nearby, a man, his cloak pulled tight around him, quickly drops a heavier silver piece into the bowl. His movements are furtive, his eyes darting around, as if he fears being judged for his desperate bargain. He doesn't linger, doesn't pray with visible fervor, but simply performs the act, a quick, almost superstitious exchange, then hurries away, leaving behind only the clink of his offering. It's a transaction, a desperate attempt to buy divine favor, to purchase an indulgence against the omnipresent pestilence. You feel the cold, hard reality of these gestures. These aren't acts of joyous giving, but of terrified supplication, a final, desperate gambit in a game where all other bets have failed. The coins glint in the weak light, a stark contrast to the despair on the faces of those who offer them. They are sacrificing their last vestiges of wealth, not for charity, but for salvation, for a miracle that has yet to manifest. You touch your own coin again, feeling its cool indifference. It holds no power against the unseen enemy, no magic to turn away the black rose. The belief that a piece of metal, however precious, could sway the hand of an indifferent God, feels both tragically human and utterly futile. You stand amidst this silent exchange, this profound hope for a purchased salvation, and the silence of the heavens seems to echo with an unsettling truth. A coin cannot buy what is freely given, nor can it force the hand of a God who has chosen not to intervene. This desperate market of faith, where salvation is put up for sale, leaves you with a chilling question. What is truly being abandoned when belief becomes a transaction? You hear it first, a low, rhythmic chant rising from the main square. It's not a hymn, not a mournful toll, but something starker, more desperate. It weaves with the distant, sickening scent of the plague, clinging to the damp air. Then, cutting through the chant, a sharp, wet crack, followed by a collective gasp from the invisible crowd, and a low, guttural moan that is instantly absorbed back into the chant. It sends a shiver through you, a blend of revulsion and morbid curiosity. You follow the sound, your boots crunching on loose gravel. As you turn into the square, the scene that unfolds before you is both horrifying and deeply unsettling. A procession moves slowly, deliberately, across the ancient stones. It's a group of men, perhaps 20 or 30, their faces grim, their eyes fixed on some internal vision. They are stripped to the waist, their bare skin stark white in the dim winter light. Each man carries a whip, crude and knotted, with tips that look suspiciously stained. With each step, they raise their arms and with a terrible synchronized motion, bring the whip down across their own backs. The sound, that sickening crack, rings out again and again. You see the flesh ripple, a fresh line of red appearing on an already lacerated back, dark against the pale skin. Some men wince, their teeth gritted, but they don't stop. They don't cry out. They continue their guttural chant, a monotonous plea for mercy, a public self-punishment. You watch their faces, contorted not just by pain, but by a fervent, almost ecstatic belief. Their eyes are wide, focused, seeing something beyond the physical agony. This isn't just suffering, it's an offering, a desperate bargain with a silent God. They believe this torment, this public display of penance, will finally break the heavens. Silence will turn away the pestilence. Their bodies are becoming a living prayer, a sacrifice written in blood and raw flesh. You feel a knot tighten in your stomach, a mix of pity and a profound unease. The stench of their sweat, of the faint metallic tang of fresh blood, reaches you. It's a visceral, unsettling odor that mixes with the omnipresent sweet rot of the plague. You see a woman in the small crowd watching, her face tear-streaked, whispering a fervent prayer, as if trying to add her own silent plea to their brutal chorus. She clutches a crucifix, her knuckles white. The rhythmic crack of the lashes continues, a relentless counterpoint to the low, droning chant. It's a terrifying spectacle of faith, pushed to its most extreme edge, a desperate attempt to force God's hand through human suffering. This isn't a gentle prayer or a quiet meditation. It's a violent, desperate shout into the void, a testament to how far humanity will go when faced with an unresponsive divine. It leaves you with a haunting question. When God is silent, does faith become a weapon turned upon oneself? The rhythmic crack of the whips against flesh continues, a relentless, sickening drumbeat in the desolate square. You see not just the physical pain, but the profound conviction etched onto each man's face. Their eyes, though glazed with exertion and agony, burn with a strange light, a fierce, desperate certainty. This self-inflicted torment is not madness to them. It is an act of profound, if brutal, logic. You realize this is their answer to the agonizing silence. If God is silent, if prayers are unheard, if the saints offer no solace, then surely it must be divine wrath. The plague, they believe, is not a random scourge but a punishment, a terrible cleansing for the sins of humanity, of the village, of your own perceived transgressions. Their lashes are a collective plea for forgiveness, an offering of their own blood to appease a furious, distant God. You taste the dust in the air, mixed now with a faint coppery tang, and the thick, desperate scent of bodies pushed to their limit. You watch the other villagers, those who stand and observe, their faces a tableau of conflicting emotions. Some avert their gaze, unable to bear the sight, yet they cannot leave. Others stare with a rapt intensity, their lips moving in silent prayers, a shared, vicarious penance. You see mothers holding their children tighter, their expressions mirroring the flagellant's deep-seated fear of divine retribution. They too, in their hearts, seem to accept this grim explanation for the world's unraveling. The flagellant's chant grows louder, a guttural harmony of penitence. Kyrie eleison, Christ eleison, Lord have mercy, Christ have mercy. The words are raw, torn from their throats, not as a request, but as an assertion, a defiant acknowledgement of their perceived sinfulness. Their actions speak of a profound terror, a conviction that only through extreme suffering can the scales of divine justice be balanced, that only through blood can the unseen wrath be averted. You stand there, feeling the brutal rhythm in your very bones, caught between revulsion and a dawning understanding of this desperate human psychology. It's a terrifying revelation. When the world makes no sense, when the divine offers no comfort, humanity creates its own narrative of punishment and propitiation. God's silence, rather than suggesting absence, is interpreted as the most terrifying roar of all, the thunder of his judgment. And in that terrifying silence, the deepest, most ancient fear of God's wrath takes hold, compelling souls to acts of such stark, self-immolating devotion. It leaves you wondering what kind of God inspires such terror, and what happens to faith when it is born of such overwhelming fear. The air is suddenly choked, not with rot, but with a piercing, almost painful blast of concentrated aromatics. Cloves, rosemary, thyme, and something sharper, like camphor, assault your senses, making your eyes water before you even fully comprehend the source. It's a deliberate, overwhelming smell, a scent meant to repel, to cleanse, to protect. You follow the scent, turning into a narrow, cobbled side street, and then you see him. He stands before the door of another marked house, not the one with the red cross, but a more ancient dwelling with heavy carved timber. He is a figure from a nightmare, cloaked from head to foot in dark, heavy leather, his hands encased in thick gloves. But it's his head that commands your gaze. A grotesque, bird-like mask, with two large, round glass eyes staring blankly ahead, and a long, curved beak protruding from his face. You watch as he stands there, perfectly still for a moment, his head cocked slightly, as if listening to something only he can hear from within the house. The leather of his coat creaks faintly as he shifts. The stench of his protective herbs, pumped into that formidable beak, is so intense it feels like a physical barrier, isolating him in his own aromatic prison. You realize that within that mask, his own senses are surely dulled, blinded by the very things meant to save him. He moves towards the door, his movements stiff, almost robotic, a silhouette against the dim light of the alley. He holds a long, slender wooden stick, using it to nudge open the door just a crack. You imagine the world he experiences from behind those glass eyes, through that perfumed beak. A world distorted, muffled, cleansed of its true, horrifying smells. He is a vessel of perceived knowledge, a walking, breathing barrier against the plague. But how much does he truly see? You observe his actions. He does not touch the door with his gloved hand. The stick is his extension, his defense against contagion. He pauses, and you imagine him listening again, perhaps for the sound of labored breath, or the terrifying quiet of death. His very presence is a paradox, a figure of authority, yet utterly powerless against the unseen enemy, relying on superstitions and strong smells to combat a foe he cannot comprehend. As he steps cautiously into the shadowed house, disappearing behind the closing door, the powerful herbal scent lingers, slowly dissipating into the familiar, underlying sweetness of decay. You are left with the chilling image of that mask, that beak filled with herbs, a desperate attempt to create a barrier of false knowledge. It's a profound manifestation of humanity's blindness, relying on elaborate charades when faced with an unresponsive world. This doctor, with his aromatic blindness, raises a stark question. Are we merely blinding ourselves to the true nature of our suffering, or to the profound, silent indifference of a heaven that offers no clearer sight? The heavy herbal scent of the plague doctor's mask lingers in the narrow street, a ghost of his presence. You wait, listening intently for any sound from behind the closed door of the afflicted house. Minutes stretch, feeling like an eternity. The pervasive silence returns, deepened by the weight of expectation. You imagine the scene within, the heavy leather, the unseeing glass eyes, the beak filled with dried aromatics, hovering over a prone, feverish body. Then, the door creaks open again. The doctor emerges, his silhouette dark against the dim interior. He moves with the same stiff, almost ritualistic grace, but now there's a subtle slump to his shoulders, a heavier drag to his steps. He pulls the door shut, not gently, but with a firm, almost defeated thud that echoes through the quiet lane. He raises his head slightly, and you feel the blank stare of his glass eyes sweeping over the street, over you, without truly seeing. He carries no remedies, no potions, no instruments of healing. His gloved hands are empty. There's no triumphant gesture, no whispered word of hope or even of diagnosis. Only the pervasive, pungent smell of his herbs, now seeming more pathetic than protective. He is a vessel of knowledge, yes, but that knowledge, you realize, is utterly impotent in the face of this invisible foe. All his academic theories, his humoral understanding, his carefully prepared concoctions, they are nothing against the black rose blooming on the skin. He turns, his heavy boots making soft thuds on the cobblestones, and begins to walk away, his figure receding into the shadows of the street. His departure leaves a void, a deepening sense of abandonment. He has come, he has performed his grim ritual, and he is left, unable to change the inevitable. His silence as he walks away speaks volumes. It's a silence not of choice, but of profound, helpless defeat. You stand there, watching his dark form disappear, feeling the pervasive damp chill of the street seep into your bones. The doctor, a symbol of earthly wisdom and scientific endeavor, has proven as powerless as the silent saints, as the unanswered prayers. His ornate, terrifying costume, once a beacon of desperate hope, now seems a stark testament to human arrogance, to the futility of trying to understand or control the uncontrollable. His aromatic blindness wasn't just physical, it was intellectual, a desperate attempt to obscure the terrifying truth. The deep, unsettling truth settles upon you. When God is silent, all earthly knowledge, all human ingenuity, can also fall silent, revealing its own profound limitations. This leaves humanity exposed, vulnerable, without a spiritual or intellectual anchor against the relentless tide of suffering. The departing doctor, a grim, silent figure, is a powerful, haunting symbol of a world where both heaven and earth offer no answers, only a profound and terrifying silence that shatters more than just faith. It shatters the very foundations of human understanding. The doctor's receding figure leaves a lingering void, a chill that has nothing to do with the winter air. The overall silence of the village, usually broken by the sounds of life, has become a persistent, oppressive presence. Then, a new sound, startling in its fragile vulnerability, slices through the heavy quiet. It's a faint, almost imperceptible whimper, small and reedy, like a forgotten bird. You turn your head, straining to locate the sound. It comes from a narrow alleyway, even darker and more choked with shadows than the main street. The air there is thicker, carrying the familiar, cloying sweetness, but also a distinct note of damp straw and something terribly small and defenseless. A profound sense of unease settles over you, mingled with a primal curiosity. You step into the alley, your boots making soft, echoing scuffs on the uneven ground. The high walls of the surrounding houses lean in, blocking out the sky, plunging the lane into a perpetual twilight. Your eyes adjust, straining to discern shapes in the gloom. The whimper comes again, a little stronger this time, unmistakably a child's cry, but muted, exhausted, You follow the sound, deeper into the shadows, your heart thrumming a frantic rhythm. You almost trip over something small and inert. You stop, your gaze dropping to the ground. There, huddled against a cold stone wall, is a tiny bundle wrapped in tattered linen. You approach slowly, your breath held in your throat. It's a baby, no older than a few months, its face a mottled red, its tiny fists clenched. Its cries are weak, almost a silent plea, its small body shuddering with cold, and a fever you can almost feel radiating from where you stand. There's no mother, no father, no guardian in sight. Only the discarded bundle, a life left to fate, forgotten in the crushing anonymity of the plague. You kneel down, your own shadow falling over the child. You reach out a gloved hand, hesitant, your fingers hovering over its feverish skin. The raw vulnerability of this tiny life in the desolate alleyway is a stark contrast to the vast, indifferent silence that surrounds you. It's a profound testament to the plague's reach, stripping away not just health, but the most fundamental human bonds of care and protection. The child's whimper is a fragile, defiant sound in the overwhelming silence of the abandoned alley. It asks a question, not of God, but of humanity itself. Where is the compassion? Where is the care? When the heavens fall silent, and human society unravels under the weight of fear and death, what becomes of the most innocent, the most helpless among us? This small, unheard whimper in the empty alleyway reveals a devastating truth. The silence of God has not just shattered faith, but has fractured the very essence of human kindness, leaving only forgotten lives in its wake. You kneel in the shadows of the alleyway, the baby's feeble whimper the only sound in the suffocating quiet. You lift a gloved hand, gently brushing against its clammy forehead. The tiny body is hot with fever, a fragile flame flickering against a rising tide of cold. There, just beneath the thin, translucent skin of its wrist, you see it, a tiny, dark bruise, the faint, nascent bloom of the black rose. Your heart sinks, a leaden weight in your chest. The sight of that mark on such a small, innocent being is a punch to your gut. You know what it means. You know the terror it invokes. And you know with a chilling certainty why this child was left here, abandoned to the shadows. You look around the deserted alley, scanning the shuttered windows, the closed doors. Not a soul, not a sound. Only the pervasive, sweet stench of disease and the overwhelming silence. You imagine the parents, perhaps already succumbing to the illness themselves, or perhaps, in a moment of unimaginable terror and desperation, leaving their infected child to save themselves, to preserve the lives of others, or perhaps even just to die in what they hoped would be anonymity. The thought is a bitter, cold taste in your mouth. You recall the foundational teachings of kinship, of family, of the unbreakable bonds ordained by God. The sanctity of marriage, the love for one's children, the duty to one's kin. These were the bedrock of medieval society, the very structure of existence. Yet here in this shadowed alley, these sacred bonds have unraveled, torn apart by an unseen hand. The plague has not just ravaged bodies. It has poisoned the very wellspring of human connection, turning love into fear and duty into self-preservation. You gently scoop the tiny bundle into your arms. The baby is shockingly light, a mere wisp of a life. Its cries cease, replaced by a shallow, shuddering breath. Its face pressed against your chest, seeking a comfort you know you cannot truly give. You feel its fever burning against your layers of cloth, a warmth that is both terrifying and profoundly sad. As you stand there holding this forgotten child, feeling the faint tremor of its sickness, a devastating revelation washes over you. God's silence in this plague is not just an absence of divine intervention. It has become a catalyst for the unraveling of everything human. Without a guiding hand, without a comforting word, without a miraculous sign, humanity has turned upon itself, abandoning its deepest tenets, its most sacred bonds. This small, feverish body in your arms is a poignant, painful question. When God is silent and kinship unravels, what is left of the human soul? This unasked question, held in your arms, shatters more than just faith. It shatters the very idea of what it means to be connected, to be human. The grating scrape of shovel on hard earth, a relentless, dry sound, slices through the chill air. It mingles with the ever-present, cloying sweetness, now heavier, more insistent, tinged with a raw, metallic odor that catches at the back of your throat. You taste the grit of disturbed soil, damp and cold, on your tongue. The pervasive silence of the village is replaced here by the grim, mechanical rhythm of digging, a sound of industry in the service of death. You stand on a desolate, windswept hill outside the village walls, a place usually left to grazing sheep, now scarred and churned. Before you stretches a vast, open trench, crude and hastily dug, its raw edges a testament to desperate labor. It's not a grave, not in the sense you know it. No carefully prepared plots, no individual markers. This is a gaping wound in the earth. A maw ready to swallow lives en masse. The wind whips around you, biting at your exposed skin, carrying the stench of fresh earth and something far more disturbing. Then you see them. A slow procession of simple wooden handcarts, pulled by men whose faces are grim, averted, their bodies bent with a weary, profound exhaustion. On each cart lies a heap of shrouded figures, their forms indistinct beneath rough linen, no coffins, no wreaths, no individual farewells. They are simply bodies, nameless burdens, reduced to statistics by the sheer scale of the catastrophe. Each rumble of a cart, each soft thud as another form is jostled, is a blow to your spirit. You watch as the men, grim and silent, carefully tip the carts. The shrouded figures slide down the raw earth, tumbling into the open trench below. There is no priest, no last rites, no whispered prayers for eternal rest. The only sound is the soft, disturbing scrape of fabric on soil, and the occasional grunt of effort from the grave diggers. They work with a practiced, horrifying efficiency, their movements devoid of ceremony, driven by the relentless, growing pile of the dead. You feel the cold, heavy realization settle upon you. These were people. Farmers, bakers, children, mothers, all reduced to anonymous bundles in a communal ditch. Their names, their stories, their very identities are being swallowed by the earth without so much as a final blessing. The absence of ritual, the profound lack of individual dignity in death, feels like a second, deeper death. Their souls, traditionally guided by prayer and sacrament, are now seemingly cast adrift into a vast, silent emptiness. As the gravediggers pause, wiping the sweat and mud from their brows, their eyes meet yours for a fleeting moment, an ancient, weary understanding, a shared horror that transcends words. They look away quickly, returning to their grim task, This mass grave, this horrifying monument to anonymity, forces a chilling question. If the individual is forgotten in death, their final journey unmarked by prayer or ritual, what meaning remains for the life they lived? This profound silence in death, a stark contrast to the promised rest, shatters not just the comfort of belief, but the very essence of human remembrance. The cold, damp earth sticks to your boots, heavy and cloying, even through the worn leather. The dry, rhythmic scrape of shovel on rock, then on looser soil, continues without pause, a grim counterpoint to the relentless, biting wind that whips across this desolate hill. The air here, on the edge of the mass grave, is a suffocating tapestry of scents. The sharp tang of freshly turned soil, the faint, metallic whisper of old blood, and beneath it all, that sickeningly sweet perfume of decay. Now inescapable, you watch him, the grave-digger. His frame is broad, his back a canvas of strained muscle beneath a tunic caked with mud and grime. His face is a mask carved from weariness and something harder, an expression that seems to have forgotten how to soften. His hands, gnarled and raw, grip the wooden handle of his shovel with a brutal familiarity. He works with a steady, unyielding rhythm, each swing of the tool a testament to sheer endurance, a silent defiance against the sheer scale of his task. He is not young, not old, simply timeless in his grim purpose. You see the deep lines etched around his eyes, not from laughter, but from long days spent gazing into the yawning pits of the earth. His gaze, when it lifts briefly to scan the horizon for the next cart, holds a profound emptiness, as if he has seen too much, absorbed too much of the village's collective sorrow into his own spirit. He doesn't speak. He doesn't offer a prayer over the nameless bodies he enters. His laborious prayer, a silent, brutal offering to an indifferent earth. He pauses for a moment, resting the shovel against the raw edge of the trench. His breath, ragged and white in the cold air, escapes his lips in a cloud. He pulls a tattered piece of cloth from his belt, wiping the sweat and mud from his brow, his eyes briefly meeting yours. There's no recognition, no shared humanity, only a deep, ancient understanding of the shared horror, the shared silence, the grim, unspoken truth that hangs between you. Then, his gaze drops, and he returns to the task, the scrape of the shovel resuming its relentless song. You realize this is his inheritance, not land or gold, but the endless, unforgiving duty of burying the forgotten. He is the last sentinel, the one left to witness the final, anonymous departure, to press the cold earth down on countless lives unmourned. His strength, his stoicism, are born of a reality far grimmer than any sermon. He stands at the threshold between life and oblivion, performing a thankless, unending service in a world where God has gone silent and humanity has turned away. As the sun begins its slow descent, painting the western sky in hues of bruised purple and orange, the shadows lengthen, swallowing the trench, the shrouds, the solitary figure of the gravedigger. He continues his work, a lonely, powerful symbol of endurance. His grim inheritance, this ceaseless task, reveals a profound, haunting truth. When God is silent and the living scatter, it is often the forgotten, those burdened with the heaviest, most thankless tasks, who bear witness to the deepest ruptures in faith and community. What does such an inheritance do to a soul, forced to dig graves while heaven remains mute. The air chokes you with an entirely new scent, sharp and acrid, far more aggressive than the cloying sweetness of decay or the perfumed masks of the doctors. It's the undeniable stinging smell of burning wood, of resin, and something else, a faint, unsettling odor of scorched hair and frantic, terrified movement. It tastes bitter on your tongue, filling your lungs with a dry, choking sensation. You hear it too, a low, muttering murmur from a gathering crowd, laced with a venomous undertone you haven't heard before. You follow the rising column of dark, greasy smoke, drawn by a morbid fascination. The usual silence of the deserted streets gives way to a low, building hum of human voices, a collective nervous energy. As you turn into a wider, less frequented square, the scene that unfolds is stark and horrifying. A bonfire blazes fiercely, its flames licking high into the dimming afternoon sky, casting orange and black shadows that dance like mad spirits on the surrounding buildings. You notice the figures circling the fire, not the penitent flagellants, but a different kind of fervor. Their faces are contorted, not by pain, but by a chilling mix of fear and righteous fury. Their eyes are wide, darting, searching for something to condemn, something to blame. You feel the heat radiating from the fire, a physical manifestation of the raw, desperate anger that now grips the community. You see a group of men, their faces grim, their hands clutching rough wooden staves. They are pushing, almost hurting, a small group of people towards the flames. These are the scapegoats, the accused, branded with suspicion and fear. Their clothes are torn, their faces streaked with soot and tears, their bodies trembling not just from cold but from sheer terror. You notice their eyes, wide with a profound, uncomprehending fear fixed on the hungry flames. One old woman, her hair wild and disheveled, stumbles and falls. A man in the crowd spits at her, his face a mask of primal hatred. You hear hushed accusations, whispered charges of witchcraft, of poisoning the wells, of conspiring with unseen evils. The crowd, usually bound by shared faith, is now bound by a shared, irrational fury, a desperate need to find a tangible enemy, to explain the inexplicable. The acrid smoke stings your eyes, making them water, blurring the horrifying scene. It's the smoke of blame, of irrational fear, of a community turning inward, seeking an enemy among themselves when the true foe remains invisible. This isn't just a fire, it's a pyre of reason, of compassion, of justice. God's silence, rather than fostering unity, has unleashed a darker, more primitive impulse within humanity, a terrifying need to punish, to purge, to find a human face for divine wrath. This desperate act of blame, fueled by terror, shatters not just the lives of the innocent, but the very moral fabric of the community itself, leaving you with a haunting question. When God is silent, does humanity descend into a hell of its own making? The thick, acrid smoke from the bonfire twists and writhes, carrying with it not just the scent of burning wood, but the potent, unsettling aroma of fear. It clogs your throat, making each breath taste like ashes and accusation. The raw, guttural murmur of the crowd now pulses with a hungry, almost primal energy, a collective heart beating fast with a terrifying, unified purpose. You feel the heat of the flames not just on your skin, but as a burning sensation in the pit of your stomach, a chilling internal fire mirroring the chaos before you. You watch as the men with staves, their faces contorted into masks of zealous anger, press closer to the accused. One particularly burly man, his jaw set in a hard line, shoves an old woman forward. She stumbles on the uneven ground, her frail body shaking, her worn, patched skirt catching briefly on a stray ember. Her eyes, wide and watering from the smoke and terror, dart from face to hostile face in the crowd, a silent plea for recognition, for mercy, for a glimpse of humanity. But she finds none. Only hardened stares, averted gazes or eyes burning with suspicion. Another man, younger, his face flushed with a terrifying mix of fear and adrenaline, raises his staff, not to strike, but as a symbolic gesture, pointing it accusingly at a young girl cowering behind the old woman. His finger, raw and cracked from labor, trembles slightly, but his gaze is unwavering, filled with a cold, unforgiving judgment. He doesn't need to speak. His gesture screams, guilty, a silent verdict passed by fear and panic. You notice a small, dark bundle clutched tightly in the young girl's arms. A doll, perhaps, or a meager piece of cloth, her only comfort. Her small body is rigid with terror, every muscle tensed, as if bracing for a blow that hasn't yet come. You can almost feel the frantic rhythm of her heart, echoing the panicked thrum of your own. This isn't just a crowd, it's a terrifying, faceless entity. Its cruelty born not of malice, but of a desperate, primal urge to survive at any cost, to externalize the invisible threat. The flames roar, casting long, distorted shadows that make the accusers seem monstrous, their faces twisted into caricatures of righteous fury. The accused, huddled together, appear small, fragile, utterly defenseless against the overwhelming force of communal terror. Their silence is a profound contrast to the crowd's low, menacing hum. It's the silence of utter despair, of a world that has deemed them less than human. You stand there, a silent witness to this unraveling, this horrifying manifestation of fear's cruelty. This isn't divine wrath. This is human wrath, twisted and unleashed in the vacuum of a silent heaven. The profound horror of this scene isn't just in the injustice, but in the chilling realization that humanity, stripped of divine comfort and guidance, can turn on itself with such terrifying, self-righteous abandon. What fragile thread holds compassion when panic takes hold? And who among us is truly safe when fear wears a human face? This spectacle, born of an absent God, shatters the very concept of human grace. The scent hits you first, a thick, cloying sweetness, not of rotting fruit, but of burning beeswax. It's a smell of devotion, of countless prayers rising on unseen currents, a fragile comfort against the pervasive chill of the air. But beneath it, thin and insidious, is the unmistakable metallic tang of decay, a whisper of old blood and failing flesh that clings to the ancient stones of the church. This mingling of sacred and profane assaults your senses, a paradox that makes your throat ache. You step inside, and the vastness of the nave swallows sound, but not the mingling odors. Your boots scuff softly on the cold flagstones, an echo in the profound quiet. Dim light filters reluctantly through grimy, stained glass windows, illuminating dust motes dancing like lost souls in the heavy air. Dozens of candles, some fresh, some mere stumps, flicker across the altar and along the side chapels. a desperate constellation of tiny, trembling flames against the encroaching gloom. Each one is a small offering, a burning plea. You walk slowly down the central aisle, drawn by the insistent glow. The air grows warmer here, concentrated around the altar, the heat radiating from so many small fires. You feel the rough, cold stone beneath your gloved hand as you lean against a pew, a stark contrast to the intense heat from a nearby taper. The wax itself, soft and yielding, smells of honeycomb and ancient reverence, a scent designed to evoke sanctity, to usher in a divine presence. But the decay persists, an unseen guest clinging to the very fabric of the church, a stark reminder of the world outside, of the black roses blooming on skin, of the mass graves being dug. You see a fresh, vibrant beeswax candle, still dripping its golden tears, placed precariously close to a darkened, older one, half melted, its wick black and broken. It's a silent story of renewed hope, extinguished. This familiar ritual, this gentle light, this comforting smell, it's all meant to soothe, to connect, to invoke presence. Yet, as you breathe it in, deeply, a profound question settles within you. What comfort can beeswax offer when the overwhelming reality outside stinks of abandonment? What meaning does this light hold when darkness consumes everything? The candles burn on, their silent vigil, a testament to human longing, but the persistent decay whispers a different truth. It's the sound of prayers unheard, of a connection severed, leaving you to wonder if the spiritual silence has seeped even into these sacred walls, reducing devotion to a haunting, beautiful scent without a recipient. The cold, damp air of the church follows you as you leave, but the pervasive sweetness of beeswax begins to fade, replaced by something older, more somber. Now, another scent emerges, sharper, laced with the unmistakable aroma of stale parchment and ancient stone, tinged with a faint metallic dust that scrapes at the back of your throat. You hear it too, a distant, hollow echo, like a whisper carried on a perpetual draft, calling you deeper into an even more profound, almost sacred silence. You find yourself before the heavy, weather-beaten gates of the monastery, usually bustling with the quiet industry of cloistered life, with the measured comings and goings of brothers, of supplicants seeking solace or healing. Today the massive oak gates hang slightly ajar, a silent, unsettling invitation into a world frozen in time. You push one open, and the rusty hinges groan with a long, drawn-out cry, a loud, mournful sound that reverberates through the deserted courtyard, startling the very air. Your boots scuff on the uneven flagstones, each step an unnaturally loud intrusion into the profound quiet. You walk through the cloister, the arched walkways designed for contemplation, usually filled with the rhythmic, measured pace of monks at prayer, their communal chants echoing softly from stone to stone. Now, only your own footsteps break the heavy stillness, a lonely, intrusive rhythm that feels almost sacrilegious. The air here is colder still, infused with the sharp, clean scent of damp moss and neglected gardens, a haunting reminder of the lives that once cultivated both spiritual discipline and earthly beauty in this sacred enclosure. The small, carefully tended herb plots, once bursting with greens and healing plants, are now visibly overgrown, wilting, succumbing slowly to the encroaching wildness, a silent testament to a forgotten purpose. You reach the main chapel, its heavy oak door ajar, revealing a vast, cavernous space swallowed by deep shadows. Moonlight, thin and watery, struggles to stream through the high, arched windows, painting faint stripes of ghostly white across the empty rows of pews. You see the faint glint of tarnished gold on the distant altar, the familiar, imposing crucifix standing solemn and still, its wooden figure gazing down on an empty hall. But there are no candles, no flickering lights, no warming glow of human presence, only the pervasive, bone-deep cold, the deep, resonant silence of an abandoned sanctuary. You move slowly down the center aisle, your gaze drawn inexorably to a single solitary figure. An old monk, ancient and frail, kneels directly before the altar, his back to you. His simple, worn robes are faded, his head bowed so deeply his face is completely obscured, lost in shadow. His hands are clasped, gnarled and trembling, clutching a rosary made of rough wooden beads, polished smooth by countless repetitions. He is murmuring, his voice a dry, reedy whisper, barely audible above the vast, echoing silence of the empty hall. He is praying, not a communal chant of brethren, but a solitary, desperate plea, a fragile whisper into an immense, unanswering void. You watch him, this last bastion of faith, this lone sentinel in a place emptied by death and the profound weight of fear. His singular devotion is a fragile, lonely flame, struggling against an overwhelming darkness, a poignant symbol of individual resistance against a pervasive spiritual silence. His prayer, in this utterly empty monastery, feels less like an appeal and more like a question, an agonizing, unceasing query to a heaven that remains unyielding, unheard. The very air around him hums with the effort of his unwavering, solitary faith. As he bows his head even lower, his thin shoulders shaking almost imperceptibly, you feel the crushing weight of his solitary belief. It's a testament to the unyielding human need for connection, for meaning. Even when all tangible evidence points to utter abandonment, the taste of spiced wine coats your tongue, warm and heavy, a fleeting illusion of comfort in a world gone cold. It's sweet, almost cloying, with the sharp bite of cinnamon and cloves, the subtle heat of ginger, mingling with the rich, dark fruit of the vintage. You savor it for a moment, letting the complex flavors bloom across your palate. A stark contrast to the bitter tang of fear that has become so constant. The liquid slides down your throat, bringing a temporary warmth that spreads through your chest, a fragile barrier against the bone-deep chill that pervades everything. You sit at a heavy oak table in a dimly lit room, its thick walls muffling the distant, mournful sounds of the dying village. A single tallow candle, its flame dancing nervously, casts long, shifting shadows that make the familiar shapes of carved furniture seem monstrous, alive with unseen dread. The air is thick with the scent of the wine, mingled with the faint, persistent aroma of old wax and the underlying metallic whisper of plague that seems to seep through stone and timber alike. You pull your cloak tighter around you, feeling the rough wool against your skin. A small comfort against the vast uncertainty. A heavy silver goblet rests in your hand, cool against your palm, its surface catching and reflecting the meager candlelight in dancing glints. You lift it again, watching the wine swirl, its deep ruby color seeming almost black in the gloom. It's a costly indulgence, a luxury purchased in desperation, believed by some to fortify the body, to purify the blood, to ward off the very pestilence that now grips the land. You recall the hushed whispers of learned men, their elaborate theories about celestial influences and corrupted humors, all of which now seem as fragile as the flickering candle flame. You look across the table. A small gathering, perhaps 4 others, sits in silent communion with their own goblets. Their faces are pale, drawn, their eyes shadowed with a weariness that goes beyond physical exhaustion. They sip their wine slowly, deliberately, each a silent witness to a shared, unspoken terror. You see the glint of desperation in their eyes, the grim determination to cling to this small, fleeting pleasure, this last pretense of normalcy, even as the world crumbles around them. Their hands, though steady, betray a subtle tremble as they raise the goblets. No words are exchanged, no toasts offered. The silence is profound, heavy with unspoken fears, and the chilling knowledge of the invisible enemy lurking just beyond the thick walls. The spiced wine, this momentary warmth, is not a celebration. It's an act of defiance, a desperate prayer, a final indulgence on a tongue that knows it might soon fall silent, doomed by a fate no spice or prayer can avert. It's a stark, poignant scene of humanity clinging to a fragile ritual, a taste of fleeting life against the omnipresent specter of death. As the last drop of spiced wine warms your throat, leaving a lingering sweetness that quickly turns to bitterness, a profound revelation dawns upon you. This desperate attempt at comfort, this reliance on earthly concoctions and superstitious beliefs, is another manifestation of God's silence. When divine intervention is absent, when prayers go unanswered, humanity seeks solace and false protection in the tangible, even in the very sensations of taste and smell. This bittersweet indulgence, a fragile act of defiance on a doomed tongue, reveals a devastating truth. When God is silent, even the most profound human comforts become a poignant, terrifying reminder of vulnerability, asking what happens to hope when it can only be found in a fleeting taste. The warmth of the spiced wine still lingers on your tongue, a ghost of comfort that quickly dissipates into the pervasive cold. Suddenly, a jarring discord of sound erupts from beyond the thick walls. A rough, frantic burst of music from a lute, clumsily accompanied by the reedy screech of a pipe. It's not joyous, not harmonious, but raw, almost desperate, cutting through the heavy silence with an unsettling urgency. The air outside, you sense, is still thick with the metallic tang of sickness, but here, it's momentarily obscured by the acrid scent of cheap lamp oil, the sweet aroma of burnt sugar, and the faint, almost intoxicating fumes of strong, unadulterated spirits. You push back from the heavy oak table, the silver goblet clinking softly as you set it down. You walk towards the heavy, studded door at the far end of the room, drawn by the insistent, almost defiant sound. As you open it, the change is immediate and jarring. You step into a larger, low-ceilinged hall, choked with the flickering glow of countless tallow candles and smoking torches, their combined light casting wild, dancing shadows that swallow corners and distort faces. The heat in here is stifling, a contrast to the chill outside, but it's a feverish heat, almost suffocating. The hall is crowded, packed with a cacophony of bodies, a swirling eddy of movement and noise. Men and women, young and old, press close, their faces flushed, their eyes unnervingly bright. They're eating, drinking, laughing, a strange, brittle laughter that seems forced, almost hysterical, on the edge of tears. You see hands reaching for bowls of roasted meat, for loaves of coarse bread, for brimming tankards of ale, their movements hurried, almost ravenous, as if this meal might be their last. The taste of stale sweat and cheap revelry fills your mouth. You navigate through the throng, jostled by bodies that move with an almost manic energy. A woman, her face flushed, her hair coming loose from its braids, pulls a passing man into a clumsy dance, her movements stiff, unnatural, yet fiercely determined. She laughs, a sound that quickly turns into a cough, then forces another burst of mirth. There's a desperation in her eyes, a frantic need to feel alive, to touch, to taste, to forget the unspoken terror that waits just beyond the glow of the candles. A man at a nearby table slams his tankard down, splattering ale, his eyes wide, fixed on nothing in particular. He yells something unintelligible, then throws his head back, letting out a loud, drawn-out cry that is quickly swallowed by the chaotic din. It's not a shout of joy, but of a profound, agonizing release. This is not celebration. It's a furious, defiant spasm of life, a desperate clinging to sensation when oblivion looms. You feel the pressing bodies around you, the accidental brushes against arms and shoulders, each touch a reminder of both human connection and the pervasive threat. This is their answer to God's silence. If heaven offers no comfort, no salvation, then humanity will create its own fleeting heaven here now, in this moment. It's a terrifying, visceral embrace of the immediate, a desperate, hedonistic prayer whispered in the face of an indifferent apocalypse. As you stand amidst this frantic revelry, feeling the strained pulse of their forced gaiety, a profound and unsettling truth settles within you. This isn't just a party. It's a raw, desperate testament to the human spirit's refusal to simply surrender, even when abandoned by the divine. This fierce, fleeting dance with oblivion, born from the depths of despair, reveals a devastating question. When God is silent, and hope turns to ashes, does humanity's ultimate act of faith become the defiant, desperate choice to live, truly live, for just one more night, knowing that tomorrow might never come? It's a shattering revelation about the nature of human resilience, and the terrifying freedom found in absolute despair. You feel it first, a phantom brush against your arm, a warmth that isn't there, a memory of touch in a world now afraid of skin. It's a ghost sensation, fleeting and profound, cutting through the damp chill of the evening air. The pervasive, sweet stench of the plague seems to thicken around you, a constant, cloying reminder of why every human contact has become a potential harbinger of death, why the simplest gesture of comfort is now laden with terror. You walk through what was once the heart of the village, past familiar houses, their windows dark, their doors sealed. The silence is broken only by the whisper of the wind, carrying with it the faint, distant echo of a church bell, a single, mournful clang that sounds lost and alone. This silence presses against your ears, amplifying the absence of life, of laughter, of the casual brush of shoulders in a bustling square. You stop before the baker's shop, its wooden counter usually warm and dusted with flour, often crowded with children reaching for warm loaves. Now the heavy wooden shutter is drawn, scarred with an angry red cross, the mark of contagion. You trace the rough wood with your gloved finger, feeling the texture of the grain, but you remember the feel of the fresh bread, still warm from the oven, handed over with a smile, a brief, innocent exchange of touch that now feels like a dangerous memory. You think of the old custom, a reassuring hand on a shoulder, a shared embrace at a funeral, the gentle caress of a mother's hand on a feverish brow. These were the anchors, the small, unspoken languages of human connection that bound the world together. Now, each memory feels distant, almost forbidden, tainted by the unseen enemy. The very air around you seems to hum with this enforced separation, a physical manifestation of fear that has stretched between every soul. You see a small, discarded wooden doll lying in the gutter, its painted face faded, its tiny arms outstretched. It's a poignant symbol, this innocent imitation of human form, abandoned and unheld. You recall the children you used to see, clutching their own dolls, pressing them close, seeking the comfort of touch, even from inanimate objects. Now, even those small, innocent gestures seem impossible. Swallowed by the overwhelming fear of contagion, you reach into your cloak, your fingers brushing against the rough surface of a worn crucifix. You hold it tight, feeling the cold, smooth wood against your palm. It's a tangible link, a substitute for human connection, a desperate grasp for a spiritual anchor in a world where physical comfort is a luxury, a danger. But even this feels different now, its familiar solidity imbued with a new, unsettling desperation. As you stand there holding the cold wood, surrounded by the overwhelming silence, a chilling revelation settles upon you. God's silence has not merely shattered faith, it has profoundly altered the very nature of human connection, turning the simple act of touch into a terrifying gamble, a forbidden language. The memory of a human hand, a comforting presence, has become a ghost, haunting the desolate streets and leaving you to wonder if a world without touch can truly survive, or if the absence of human kindness echoes the deeper, terrifying absence of the divine. This profound loss, the ghost of a human touch, shatters more than just comfort. It shatters the very essence of human communion. You feel your own breath, shallow and quick, catching in your throat. It's no longer just air. It's a carrier, a pathway for the invisible enemy. Your skin, once a comforting boundary, now feels like a porous membrane, a potential betrayal. Every subtle shift within your body, every faint ache, becomes a potential harbinger, a silent accusation whispered from within your own flesh. The lingering scent of decay, omnipresent in the village, seems to permeate even your own being, making you question the very air you breathe, the very ground you stand on. You walk with a strange detachment, your senses heightened, yet oddly dulled. You observe your own gloved hands, now an extension of your defense, not of your natural form. You notice the rhythmic thud of your own boots on the cold ground, a familiar sound, yet now it carries a foreign weight, the sound of a body moving cautiously, warily, through a hostile world. Your every action, every instinct is now filtered through the lens of contagion. You think of the teachings, the sermons about the soul, pure and eternal, residing within the mortal vessel, the body, the divine spark nestled within the earthly clay. It was a comforting dichotomy, a promise of spiritual resilience against physical decay. But now, in this plague-ridden world, that sacred distinction feels profoundly twisted. The body, once seen as a temporary home for the soul, now feels like a prison, a dangerous trap. It's the source of disease, the point of vulnerability, the very thing that connects you to the rampant sickness. You look down at your hands, then at your chest, feeling the subtle beat of your heart beneath your ribs. This body, your body, is now an object of suspicion, a potential host for the Black Rose. You instinctively pull away from yourself, a subtle mental and emotional separation. Your thoughts become a refuge, a cleaner, safer space, a desperate attempt to isolate the essence of who you are, your consciousness, your will, your deepest self, from the fragile, infected shell you inhabit. The concept of a unified self, of soul and body intertwined in a divinely ordained harmony, begins to unravel under the relentless pressure of fear. You crave a spiritual purity, an untouchable core that cannot be defiled by the physical corruption spreading through the land. This is a profound internal fracturing, a desperate act of self-preservation where the mind seeks to disown the very flesh that houses it. You close your eyes for a moment, seeking refuge in the inner darkness, trying to feel that elusive, unblemished core. But even there, the image of the Black Rose, the fear of contamination, seeps in, a persistent shadow. This profound internal separation, this desperate attempt to isolate the soul from the body, is a chilling testament to the plague's insidious reach. It reveals a devastating truth. God's silence has not just broken the world, but has fractured the very essence of human identity. It leaves you with a haunting question. When fear forces the soul to flee its own body, what remains of the human being? And can a fractured self ever truly find solace in a silent heaven? This internal rupture shatters more than just faith. It shatters the sacred unity of existence. You push open the heavy oak door of the village scribe's house, and the air within is thick, cold, and utterly still. It smells of dried parchment, old ink, and a faint, cloying mustiness that speaks of long neglect. Your boots scuff on the wooden floorboards, the sound amplified by the profound quiet, a stark contrast to the distant, muffled echoes of fear and decay that permeate the outside world. Here, the silence isn't just an absence, it's a presence, heavy and brooding. You step into the main room, its small, narrow windows shuttered against the light, plunging the space into perpetual gloom. Dust motes dance in the thin shafts of light that manage to pierce the cracks, swirling like tiny, lost galaxies in the stagnant air. Your gaze falls upon the scribe's heavy wooden desk, usually cluttered with quills, inkpots, and rolls of freshly penned decrees. Now it stands eerily bare, a single, half-finished manuscript lying open, its parchment yellowed with age, its elegant script frozen mid-sentence. You reach out, your fingers brushing the smooth, cold surface of the desktop, then the rough, dry parchment. The ink, black and permanent, tells of carefully recorded histories, of precise inventories, of theological arguments laid out with meticulous logic. These were the foundations of understanding, the carefully constructed edifice of medieval reason, attempting to categorize, to explain, to order the chaos of the world. You recall the scribe himself, a man of quiet intellect, his spectacles perched on his nose, his brow furrowed in concentration as he meticulously transcribed sermons, philosophical texts, even medical treatises. He believed in the power of words, in the order of knowledge, in the ability of human reason to grasp the divine plan. His very existence was a testament to the pursuit of understanding, a defiance against ignorance. But now the manuscript lies unfinished, a silent testament to a world abruptly halted. The carefully reasoned arguments on the page, the intricate philosophical debates, the precise theological distinctions, they all seem profoundly meaningless, useless. The dust motes dance above them, mocking their static permanence. This knowledge, once a source of comfort and guidance, now feels like a hollow echo in a deserted hall, irrelevant in the face of an invisible, irrational enemy that respects no logic, adheres to no rules. You feel a profound sense of disillusionment, a chilling realization that the very pillars of human understanding have crumbled. The plague has exposed the fragility of reason, the impotence of knowledge when confronted by the truly unknowable, the utterly uncontrollable. This quiet, dusty room, with its unfinished manuscript and its silent halls, becomes a haunting symbol of the failure of human intellect in the face of divine silence. As you stand amidst the dust motes swirling in the stagnant air, surrounded by the remnants of useless reason, a devastating question forms in your mind. When God is silent and reason offers no answers, what happens to the human need to understand, to find meaning? This profound silence of knowledge shatters not just intellectual certainty, but the very belief in humanity's capacity to comprehend its own suffering, leaving only a haunting void where understanding once resided. You step through the archway, the low, reverberating sound of your boots echoing strangely in the vast, cold space. The air here is thick with the dry, ancient scent of aging parchment, of leather bindings, and a faint, acrid tang of forgotten dust. It catches in your throat a taste of history, a weight of accumulated thought, far removed from the sweet rot and fear that permeate the village outside. The pervasive silence here isn't empty. It's filled with the unspoken words of generations of scholars, a profound, heavy quiet. You find yourself in the scriptorium, a long, vaulted hall within the monastery walls. Overhead, thin shafts of winter light struggle through high, grimy windows, illuminating countless motes of dust, dancing in the stagnant air, swirling like tiny, disoriented spirits. Along the walls, massive wooden shelves stretch from floor to ceiling, crammed with hundreds, thousands of meticulously bound volumes. Each one is a fortress of knowledge, a testament to human intellect, to centuries of careful thought, debate, and explanation. You approach a heavy, carved lectern where a truly enormous tome lies open, its pages yellowed and brittle with age. You reach out, your fingers tracing the elegant, intricate script, the dense Latin text. This is a work of scholastic philosophy, a carefully constructed edifice of logic and theology designed to explain the universe, God's will, and humanity's place within it. Every argument is meticulously laid out, every paradox addressed, every mystery given a reasoned, comforting framework. This book, like all the others around you, represents an absolute certainty, a complete understanding of divine order. You recall the scholars who once pored over these very pages, their brows furrowed, their quills scratching, finding solace and answers in the intricate web of reason. They believed that through rigorous thought, through the careful application of logic, the divine plan could be discerned, the mysteries of existence illuminated. God, they taught, was ultimately knowable through reason, his actions understandable within a grand benevolent design. This library, this scriptorium, was the heart of that certainty. But now, the book lies open, its profound words silent, unread. The complex arguments, the careful distinctions, the absolute certainties feel profoundly hollow, almost absurd. The dust motes dance above them, mocking their static permanence. This vast ocean of knowledge, accumulated over generations, offers no remedy for the black rose, no explanation for the silent heavens, no comfort for the terror in the streets. The plague has exposed a gaping void in this carefully constructed universe of reason, rendering every meticulous argument, every comforting dogma, utterly impotent. You stand amidst these towering monuments to human intellect, feeling the overwhelming weight of their collective failure. The very foundation of scholastic certainty has crumbled, revealed as a fragile illusion in the face of an incomprehensible, unstoppable force. God's silence has not just rendered faith precarious, it has shattered the very frameworks of understanding, leaving reason itself stranded, adrift in a sea of unanswered questions. What good is a complete explanation of the universe when the universe itself has gone mad, and the very God who supposedly ordered it remains silent? This profound collapse of certainty leaves you with a haunting question. When reason fails and faith is unmoored, what new truths, however terrifying, must humanity forge for itself? You feel it first, the unexpected, startling coolness of silk against your gloved hand. It's a fabric of unimaginable luxury, smooth and slick, woven with intricate patterns that catch the dim light. A scent of old spices and cedar lingers, a ghost of wealth and reverence, a stark contrast to the cloying sweetness of decay that clings to every other surface in the village. This touch, this sensation of opulence feels profoundly out of place, almost sacrilegious, in a world consumed by death. You stand in a small, ornate side chapel, within the larger, echoing silence of the village church. The air here is heavy, thick, with the lingering aroma of aged wood, forgotten incense, and that unsettling, metallic tang that has become synonymous with the plague. A single beeswax candle, its flame, a trembling golden tear, struggles against the deep shadows, casting long, dancing figures across the velvet hangings and the polished marble altar. Its faint light struggles to illuminate the rich, faded tapestries depicting scenes of biblical grandeur, their colors muted by time and gloom. Your gaze is fixed on the effigy before you. It's the sculpted figure of a revered lord, perhaps a saint, or a patron of the village, lying in eternal repose atop an elaborately carved stone sarcophagus. His features are rendered with exquisite detail, serene in death, his hands clasped over his chest. And it is his tunic, the garment he wears in sculpted stillness, that is made of this impossibly fine silk, preserved beneath a layer of protective, albeit dusty, glass. You reach out, pressing your gloved hand against the cold, smooth glass, feeling the ghost of the silk beneath it. This garment, this symbol of power and sanctity, once worn by a man who commanded respect, perhaps even awe, now lies inert, a mere adornment to a stone figure. You remember the stories of this Lord's piety, his acts of charity, his powerful intercession for the village in times of hardship. People once flocked here, touching this very effigy, whispering prayers for protection, for healing, believing in the tangible power of his blessed relics. But now the air around the effigy is still, no fresh flowers, no lit votives. The prayers have ceased, or perhaps they have gone unheard, absorbed by the silence of the stones. The luxurious silk, preserved for centuries, offers no warmth, no comfort, no protection against the invisible enemy that stalks the living. It is a thing of beauty, yes, but a beauty rendered utterly useless, profoundly impotent in the face of the overwhelming pestilence. As your hand rests on the cold glass, feeling the distant luxury of the silk, a chilling revelation settles upon you. The reverence for relics, for symbols of earthly power or divine favor, has evaporated. This Lord, once a source of comfort, now lies silent and still, as unresponsive as the heavens themselves. His silken tunic, a testament to bygone glory, is just fabric, cold and inert, a stark monument to the collapse of all things trusted. The profound emptiness of this chapel, the cold silence surrounding this dead Lord, forces a haunting question. When God is silent, and even the most cherished symbols of spiritual and earthly power offer no solace, what remains of the faith that once clung so fiercely to such tangible anchors? This touch, this feel of a dead Lord's silken tunic, shatters more than just an illusion of protection. It shatters the very idea that anything material, however sacred, can bridge the chasm of divine indifference. You pull your hand back from the cold glass, the phantom smoothness of the Lord's silken tunic lingering on your gloved fingers. The reverence of the chapel, once a sanctuary for powerful intercessors, now feels like a hollow echo against the undeniable, sweet stench of the plague that seeps even through these hallowed walls. You step back into the main body of the church, the vast space still and silent, a monument not to salvation, but to abandonment. You exit the heavy oak doors, and the damp, chill air of the village square immediately embraces you. The ubiquitous sweetness of decay is heavier now, a palpable presence. You walk, your boots soft on the cold cobblestones, towards the grandest dwelling in the village, the manor house of the local lord. Its stone walls, usually bustling with servants, guards, and petitioners, stand stark and silent, its windows shuttered tight, like the closed eyes of a sleeping giant. You push open the heavy outer gate, its hinges groaning mournfully, the sound piercing the profound quiet. The grand courtyard, typically swept clean, is strewn with dead leaves and windblown debris, a testament to neglect. The air here smells of damp stone, old wood, and a faint, unsettling aroma of stagnant water from an unmaintained fountain. You move deeper, towards the main entrance. The huge carved oak door of the manor is not locked. It stands slightly ajar, a silent, unsettling invitation. You push it open and step into the vast, cavernous great hall. The air inside is cold, thick with the scent of fine, aged timber, forgotten feasts, and a deeper, unsettling mustiness. Dust motes dance in the faint light, filtering through narrow slits in the heavy curtains, swirling like tiny, lost souls in the oppressive gloom. You gaze around the hall, its walls once adorned with colorful tapestries depicting hunts and battles, its hearth usually roaring with a comforting fire. Now the tapestries are faded, dusty, their images indistinct in the gloom. The massive fireplace is cold, its stones black and empty. The heavy banquet tables, usually groaning with food and drink, stand bare, their polished surfaces reflecting only shadow. No servants hurry through the passageways, no guards stand watch, no lord sits enthroned at the high table. Only the profound, echoing silence. You recall the rigid social order, the hierarchy taught since childhood. the king, the nobles, the clergy, the common folk. Each with their divinely appointed place, their duties, their protections. The lord of the manor, a figure of authority, wealth, and supposed divine favor, was at the very pinnacle of village life. His wealth was his shield, his status, his armor. But here, in this silent abandoned hall, all that seems to have vanished. You feel the cold, hard reality of this new world order. The plague, the great leveler, has swept through this grand house, just as it has through the humblest cottage. Wealth offers no immunity, status no protection, piety no special favor. The silence in this once proud hall is the loudest testament to that truth. It's the sound of a system crumbling, of a hierarchy collapsing under the indifferent hand of death. As you stand amidst the dust motes and the profound quiet, a chilling question forms in your mind. If the plague levels all, stripping away rank, wealth, and even life itself, what meaning remains for the social order that humanity so painstakingly constructs? This silence, born from the great leveler, shatters not just the old world's hierarchy, but the very belief in its divine ordination, leaving you to wonder what new, terrifying truths will emerge from the ruins of shattered certainty. The sound slices through the deep, suffocating quiet of the night. Not the familiar wind, nor the distant creak of an abandoned cart, but a long, mournful howl. It's an animal sound, ancient and wild, rising from the very heart of the deserted village, a chilling declaration of new inhabitants. It scrapes along your nerves, a primal fear awakening deep within you. Then a second howl answers it, closer, perhaps from the market square, a haunting duet that makes the hair on your arms stand on end. You feel the biting cold of the late winter air seeping into your bones, a chill that has nothing to do with the weather, but everything to do with this profound, unnatural intrusion. The pervasive, sweet stench of decay, a constant companion in these desolate streets, seems to shift, now laced with a sharper, musky odor, the smell of wildness, of raw predator. You taste the sudden, dry, metallic tang of fear in your mouth, sharp and unwelcome. You move cautiously, pressing yourself against the cold stone of a shuttered house, your boots silent on the damp cobblestones. You strain your eyes, trying to pierce the oppressive darkness that swallows the narrow lanes. The only light comes from a sliver of moon struggling through thick clouds, casting long, distorted shadows that twist familiar buildings into grotesque, watchful shapes. Every creak of wood, every whisper of wind becomes a potential threat, a prelude to something unseen. Then you see it. A shadow, larger than a dog, detaches itself from the deeper gloom near the abandoned well in the village square. It moves with a low, predatory grace, its form indistinct but unmistakable. Another shadow follows. Then another, moving like ghosts through the heart of what was once a bustling human space. They sniff at the overturned market stalls, their bodies tense, their heads low, their wild presence a stark, terrifying challenge to the very idea of human dominion. A low growl, deep and resonant, echoes from the center of the square, a sound of hunger, of untamed nature reclaiming its territory. It's a sound that should belong to the distant forests, to the wild, untamed lands beyond the village walls, not to the cultivated hearts and homes of man. You feel a profound, chilling sense of reversal. The boundaries have dissolved. The fragile order of human civilization has utterly collapsed. giving way to something ancient and untamed. You stand there, a silent witness to this haunting scene, feeling the profound shift in the world's order. The howls continue, mournful and triumphant, a new liturgy sung into the silent, indifferent heavens. This isn't just the return of wild beasts. It's a stark, visceral symbol of the complete abandonment of humanity, not just by God, but by the very forces of nature that once respected the boundaries of human settlement. This haunting sound of wolves in the village square, a profound echo in the dead of night, asks a chilling question. When God is silent, and humanity flees or falls, what claims the empty spaces? When the sacred order dissolves, does chaos merely reclaim what was always its own, shattering not just faith, but the very illusion of human control, leaving only the primal, unchallenged call of the wild? The howls echo, long and mournful, then break into a series of sharper, more guttural barks, a communication that belongs to an older world. You stand frozen, pressed against the cold stone wall, the scent of wild animal musk now mingling strongly with the persistent, sickly sweetness of human decay. It's a primal, terrifying blend, signaling a profound shift in the very fabric of existence. Your heart thrums a frantic rhythm against your ribs, a drumbeat of pure, unadulterated fear. You watch as the shadows in the square grow bolder, revealing the lean, spectral forms of several wolves. They are not merely passing through, they are settling, marking territory where children once played and merchants haggled. One wolf, larger than the others, lifts its head to sniff the air, its eyes, twin points of reflected moonlight, scanning the deserted homes with an almost intelligent curiosity. It's a gaze that holds no malice, only an ancient, patient wildness, an assertion of dominance in a newly vacant world. You notice how nature has already begun to reclaim what was once forcefully tamed. Around the base of the abandoned market stalls, weeds push through the cracks in the cobblestones, vigorous and green. A tenacious vine, usually pruned back, now snakes up the side of a baker's shop, its tendrils reaching for the wooden shutters like hungry fingers. Rust coats the iron hinges of forgotten doors, and moss thickens on the thatched roofs, blurring the lines between human creation and raw earth. The very air feels cleaner, sharper, despite the lingering stench of death, imbued with a wild energy that was long suppressed. You see a field mouse, emboldened by the absence of human activity, darting across the square, fearless, unheeding of the larger predators. It's a small detail, yet it speaks volumes. The delicate balance has tipped, and the forest has expanded its invisible borders to swallow the village whole. The world is being wiped clean, reset, rewilded. The human stories, the centuries of labor, the intricate social structures, the deeply held beliefs, all are being systematically absorbed back into the indifferent cycle of nature, leaving only ghosts and remnants behind. The wolves move towards the church, their silent padding steps echoing softly, a new, unsettling pilgrimage. They circle the heavy oak doors, sniffing at the ancient wood, their wild instincts seemingly drawn to the sacred space. No fear, no reverence, only an animal's natural curiosity. You imagine them entering, their feral forms moving through the pews, their howls filling the nave where prayers once resonated. It's a terrifying image, a complete inversion of the established order, a testament to the profound silence of a God who once held dominion over all. You stand there, a lone human witness to this silent, inexorable reclaiming, feeling the vast, chilling indifference of a rewilded world. The howling of the wolves, not a call for help, but a declaration of belonging, echoes deep within you. It's a primal sound, a raw truth that cuts through all intellectual and spiritual constructs. It asks, what is truly sacred when nature reclaims its dominion, and what does it mean to be human when God's silence allows the wild to erase all trace of your once proud civilization? This profound rewilding, a stark visual of nature's patient power, shatters more than just human control. It shatters the very illusion of our unique place in creation. You feel it first, a profound, unyielding chill that seems to emanate from the very heart of the church. It's not just the cold of winter stone, but a deeper, more ancient cold. A touch that seeps into your gloved hand and up your arm, raising the fine hairs on your skin. The air itself feels heavy, thick with the scent of damp earth, old dust, and the lingering sweet tang of decay that has become the village's signature perfume. This is a cold that speaks of permanence, of stillness, of an ending. You walk deeper into the shadows of a side chapel, its small, arched windows admitting only slivers of gray, muted light. The vastness of the nave recedes, leaving you in an intimate yet deeply unsettling space. Here, the silence is absolute, broken only by the soft, almost imperceptible scuff of your boots on the worn flagstones. It's a silence that presses against your eardrums, amplifying the sound of your own hesitant breath, a stark contrast to the clamor of desperate prayers and distant howls that echo outside. Your gaze falls upon the massive stone sarcophagus that dominates the chapel. Upon its lid, carved from a single imposing block of marble, lies the life-sized effigy of a nobleman. He is dressed in the finery of his rank, his face rendered with exquisite, almost terrifying realism. His eyes, though carved and sightless, seem to hold a solemn, unblinking gaze fixed on the vaulted ceiling. His hands are clasped in eternal prayer, rigid and unmoving. You reach out, your gloved fingers pressing against the nobleman's carved stone face. The cold is absolute, an intensity that shocks, a temperature that refuses to warm. It is the cold of eternal stillness, of profound absence, utterly devoid of the warmth of life, of blood, of human touch. This carved corpse, meant to honor and immortalize, now feels like a stark, chilling mockery of the living. It is a dead lord, forever in prayer, forever cold, forever silent. You recall the stories of this man, his piety, his generous contributions to the church, his unwavering faith in God's divine order. He was a pillar of the community, a benevolent presence whose prayers were believed to hold sway with the heavens. His tomb was once a site of pilgrimage, of solace, a tangible link between earthly power and divine grace. But now, as your hand presses against the cold carved stone, a profound and unsettling revelation washes over you. This figure, once a beacon of faith, is as unresponsive as the heavens themselves. His sculpted prayer is a silent, unmoving gesture in a world where real prayers go unanswered. The cold, unyielding stone of his face reflects the very indifference that has descended upon the land, an echo of a silent God. As you stand there, feeling the deep chill of the carved stone corpse seep into your very being, a haunting question forms in your mind. If even the most revered figures, immortalized in marble and forever in prayer, remain cold and silent in the face of such devastating suffering, what does that say about the solace we seek from above? This chilling touch, this cold, carved stillness, shatters more than just a belief in intercession. It shatters the very idea of a responsive, comforting heaven, leaving you to wonder if the divine itself has become as inert and indifferent as the stone upon which you rest your hand. The profound chill from the carved stone effigy still clings to your gloved hand, a ghost of endless cold. You pull back, the unsettling sweetness of decay and old dust filling your lungs. The deep silence of the chapel presses in, amplified by the faint, rhythmic creak of ancient timbers shifting in the winter air. Your eyes, accustomed to the gloom, drift across the rough plaster walls, scarred by centuries of damp and shadow. Then you see it, emerging from the deepest shadows on the northern wall, a fresco, faded and peeling, its once vibrant colors muted by time, yet its message stark and undeniable. It's a macabre procession, painted with a chilling, almost desperate energy. Figures of the living, drawn with surprising detail, are led in a grim dance by skeletal reapers. A king in his tattered crown, his face etched with terror, is pulled by a grinning skeleton. A noble lady, her silks rent, is forced to join hands with another bony figure. A peasant, a priest, a child. All are there, each paired with their skeletal counterpart. You approach, drawn by the haunting visual, your boots scuffing softly on the stone floor. The painting, despite its static nature, seems to move, its figures swaying in an eternal, silent rhythm. Their eyes, though mere painted dots, convey a chilling mixture of surprise, acceptance, and profound despair. This is the Danse Macabre, the dance of death, born from the very terror that grips the land. It's a stark, visceral acknowledgement that in this new world, death is the great leveler, claiming king and pauper, saint and sinner alike, without distinction, without mercy. You feel the cold, damp plaster beneath your fingertips as you trace the outline of a skeletal hand reaching for a young maiden. This art isn't about hope, or divine intervention, or the promise of salvation. It's about the crushing, undeniable reality of death's universality, a truth made brutally clear by the plague's indiscriminate harvest. It's humanity's desperate attempt to ritualize, to externalize, to even mock the utter chaos and indifference that has swept away all previous certainties. The painted figures, eternally dancing, offer no answers, only a profound, haunting reflection of the world outside. The silence that fills this chapel, echoing through the empty spaces, seems to breathe life into the grim spectacle, transforming it into a living testament to a God who remains profoundly, terrifyingly silent. This macabre dance, etched onto the very walls of faith, becomes a chilling question. When death dances with all, equally, what meaning can life truly hold? And what new, terrifying truths emerge when even the grave offers no distinction, only a universal, silent embrace? The lukewarm taste of thin broth coats your tongue, bland and unfilling, a stark reminder of dwindling provisions. You swallow, feeling the rough earthenware bowl cold beneath your gloved fingers, an unwelcome contrast to the internal warmth the food fails to provide. The persistent, cloying sweetness of decay from outside, despite the heavy shutters, still seems to cling to the air, making even this simple meal feel tainted. You sit at a small, scarred wooden table, usually a place of boisterous chatter, now swallowed by an oppressive quiet. A single tallow candle, its flame dancing nervously, casts long, flickering shadows that stretch across the faces gathered around the meager spread. There are only 3 of you tonight, where once there were 5, then 4. The empty spaces at the table loom larger than the living, each an invisible monument to absence. You watch the woman across from you, her face drawn and pale, her eyes shadowed. She stirs her broth slowly, meticulously, her spoon clinking against the bowl with a sound that seems unnaturally loud in the profound silence. Her gaze is fixed on the liquid, her lips pressed into a thin line. She does not look at you, nor at the man beside her. Her entire being is a study in forced composure, a desperate attempt to maintain a fragile semblance of normalcy in a world gone mad. The man next to you shifts on the hard wooden bench, a soft groan escaping the worn timber. He pushes his bowl away, untouched. His hands, usually strong and steady from years of labor, now tremble slightly as they rest on his knees. He stares into the middle distance, his eyes glazed, seeing not the flickering candle but some private horror unfolding behind his gaze. His silence is not peaceful. It's a heavy, suffocating weight, laden with unshed tears and unspoken questions. No one speaks of the absent. No one offers a blessing. No one complains of the tasteless food. The air itself is thick with the unspoken, with the suffocating weight of shared grief and individual fear. You feel the tremor of it in your own chest, a hollow ache that no broth, however spiced, could ever fill. This is a meal without communion, a gathering without connection, a ritual drained of its meaning. You pick up a piece of coarse bread, feeling its rough texture, but the taste is dust and ash. Your jaw aches from the effort of chewing in silence. This heavy quiet at the dinner table isn't just the absence of voices. It's the profound, chilling echo of God's silence, amplified in this most intimate of human settings. It forces you to confront the devastating truth that when the divine is absent, even the most fundamental acts of human comfort and connection become hollow, permeated by a terrifying, unasked question. If even our most cherished rituals offer no solace, no hope, what then is left to sustain us? This profound, shared silence shatters more than just conversation. It shatters the very heart of human communion. The bland taste of thin broth still coats your tongue, but it's the profound, heavy silence at the table that truly lingers. It presses against you, a palpable weight that seems to absorb all sound, all emotion. You feel the cold, rough wood of the table beneath your gloved hand, its texture a stark contrast to the burning internal ache that now defines every moment. The faint, sweet stench of decay from outside, ever present, seems to seep into the very fabric of this room, tainting even the air you breathe. You watch the woman across from you. Her gaze, still fixed on her untouched bowl, is vacant, devoid of the familiar spark of life. Her hands, gnarled and raw from labor, lie still in her lap, clenched into tight fists. There are no tears in her eyes, no sobs escaping her lips, no outward sign of the profound sorrow that must be consuming her. Her grief is a contained, silent thing, a fortress built against the overwhelming reality. The man beside you, his head bowed, his shoulders slumped, is equally silent. His breathing is shallow, almost imperceptible. He doesn't move, doesn't stir. It's a stillness that speaks of utter exhaustion, of a soul pushed beyond the limits of expression. His body language is a testament to a sorrow so vast it cannot be articulated, a pain so deep it has transcended language. You realize, with a chilling clarity, that the language of grief itself has been rewritten. The communal wailing, the ritualized mourning, the comforting words of Scripture, the shared embraces, all have vanished. There are no more funeral processions to mark each passing, no more songs of lament. The sheer scale of death has rendered traditional mourning obsolete, an impossible luxury in a world where the living are too few, too terrified, too burdened to properly grieve. This silence, this absence of outward lament, feels more profound, more agonizing than any wail. It's a silent scream, an internal torrent of sorrow that has nowhere to go, no outlet, no shared space for its expression. Each person at this table, though physically present, is profoundly isolated in their own private hell of loss. The weight of unshed tears, of unspoken goodbyes, of unfulfilled hopes hangs thick in the air, a suffocating blanket woven from individual suffering. You feel your own throat tighten, a desperate urge to break the silence, to offer some word of comfort, some acknowledgement of the crushing loss. But the words catch, dry and meaningless, on your tongue. What can be said when an entire world has gone silent, when even God offers no solace, no explanation? The language of faith, of hope, of connection has been stripped bare, leaving only this stark, profound quiet. As you sit at this silent dinner table, surrounded by the unspoken, the unmourned, a devastating truth settles upon you. God's silence has not just broken the world, but has shattered the very language of human grief, forcing it inward, isolating each soul in its own private, silent agony. It leaves you with a haunting question. When mourning becomes a solitary burden, unspoken and unshared, what happens to the human heart? And can a world that forgets how to grieve ever truly heal? This profound internal silence shatters more than just comfort. It shatters the very essence of human emotional release. The sound is sharp, sudden, and shockingly loud in the profound silence of the room. A crisp, tearing asterisk, RRRRIP asterisk that reverberates through the heavy air. It's the sound of ancient paper, of brittle parchment, giving way under force. It scrapes along your nerves, a discordant note in a world already off-key. The air itself feels thick with the familiar, cloying sweetness of decay, mingled with the faint, comforting scent of old leather and dust, now abruptly violated. You stand in what was once the local priest's study, a small, cramped room off the church sacristy. The heavy oak door is ajar, and a single, sputtering tallow candle on a makeshift table casts long, dancing shadows that swallow corners and distort familiar shapes. On the floor, scattered pages of Scripture lie like fallen leaves, their edges curled, their sacred texts now meaningless fragments. Your gaze is drawn to the priest himself. He sits hunched over a heavy, leather-bound Bible, its ancient cover scarred and worn from generations of hands. His face, usually serene and kind, is now a mask of profound, desolate rage. His eyes, usually filled with a gentle light, burn with an unsettling, desperate fire. His hands, usually clasped in prayer or raised in blessing, are now tearing at the pages of the sacred text. Another sharp asterisk RRRRIP asterisk echoes through the room. He tears out a page, then another, his movements frantic, almost violent, yet imbued with a terrible, focused intensity. He is not desecrating it out of malice, but out of a raw, agonizing despair. You see the veins bulging in his neck, the tremor in his shoulders, the profound agony in every strained muscle. This isn't an act of rebellion. It's an act of utter, complete disillusionment, a desperate cry against a silent heaven. You recall the countless times you've seen him hold this very book, its words a source of comfort, of unwavering truth, of divine promise. He read from it at every service, at every deathbed, his voice steady, his faith absolute. The Bible was the rock, the unshakable foundation of belief, the direct word of God. Its pages contain the answers, the hope, the solace for all human suffering. But now, he rips those pages out, casting them aside like worthless scraps. Each tear is a fragment of faith unraveling, a promise broken, a truth revealed as a lie in the face of an indifferent plague. The very words he once held sacred, the pronouncements of a benevolent, omnipotent God, have become hollow, empty echoes in a world consumed by suffering. His violent act speaks louder than any sermon. You stand there, a silent witness to this shattering of sacred text, feeling the profound weight of his despair. This isn't just paper tearing. It's the sound of faith itself being ripped apart, deliberately, agonizingly, by the very hand that once championed it. God's silence has not just broken the world, but has shattered the very bedrock of divine revelation, rendering the sacred word itself meaningless. It leaves you with a haunting question. When even the Holy Word offers no answers, only silence, what truths can possibly remain? And where can a desperate soul turn when the very foundations of belief are torn to shreds? This profound physical rupture shatters more than just a book. It shatters the very idea of divine communication. You step out of the priest's shattered study, the sharp sound of tearing pages still ringing in your ears. The air in the church is thick with the pervasive sweet stench of decay, now mixed with the distinct aroma of damp earth and crumbling mortar. As you walk, the immense silence of the nave is suddenly punctuated by a faint, unsettling asterisk creak. Asterisk from above, a groan from the ancient stone. It's a sound of deep, structural stress, a whisper of a protest from the very foundations. You look up, your gaze drawn to the towering, vaulted ceiling, usually a testament to divine aspiration. But in the dim, gray light filtering from the high windows, you see them. Hairline cracks spiderweb across the ancient plaster, thin veins tracing paths of weakness across the faded frescoes of saints and angels. One particularly long fissure snakes down a massive stone pillar, a dark, jagged scar against the once smooth surface. You reach out, pressing your gloved fingers against the cold stone, feeling a faint tremor, an almost imperceptible vibration within the solid rock itself. Further along, a section of wall near a forgotten side altar is stained dark with damp, the plaster bulging, crumbling, revealing the rough, unyielding stone beneath. A thin trickle of water, clear and cold, weeps silently from a high fissure, carving a slow, persistent path down the wall, collecting in a small, glistening puddle on the worn flagstones. It's not just the weather. It feels like the very building is weeping, shedding slow, silent tears for its own decay, for the burden it can no longer bear. This great church, built centuries ago as a symbol of unwavering faith, of God's enduring presence, now stands wounded, vulnerable. Its physical integrity, a reflection of spiritual strength, is visibly compromised. The carefully laid stones, the mighty arches, the foundational pillars, all are showing signs of strain, of an internal stress that no human hand, no amount of prayer can mend. The silence in these crumbling halls isn't just the absence of prayer. It's the echoing silence of a questioned foundation, a profound, unsettling stillness that speaks of decay. You step over a scatter of fallen debris, a small piece of carved gargoyle, a fragment of ornate plaster, a handful of crumbling mortar. Each piece is a testament to the slow, relentless erosion of something once thought eternal, something that once symbolized an unshakable truth. The air, once filled with the resonant power of sermons and hymns, now seems to absorb only the dry whisper of decaying matter, the unsettling quiet of an institution slowly, inexorably falling apart. As you stand amidst these physical cracks, feeling the cold dampness and hearing the subtle groans of the structure, a profound revelation settles upon you. The shattering of the priest's Bible, the tearing of the sacred word, finds its parallel in the physical tearing of this holy house. God's silence has not just broken the spiritual world, it has seeped into the very stone, revealing the inherent fragility of all human constructs, even those built to house the divine. It forces a haunting question. If the very foundations of the church, a tangible representation of unwavering faith, begin to crack and crumble, what then is the true, enduring foundation of belief? What stands firm when the sacred walls themselves weep, and the heavens offer no repair, only a profound, silent witness to the slow, inexorable decay that touches all things, both material and spiritual? This physical rupture shatters more than just a building. It shatters the very idea of divine permanence. The scent is pure, sharp, and utterly cleansing. It's the invigorating smell of rain, of wet earth and ancient stone, scrubbing the air clean. It washes away the cloying sweetness of decay, the metallic tang of fear, the acrid smoke of blame. You breathe deeply, feeling the cool, moist air fill your lungs, a sensation of profound, almost shocking renewal after so long spent in a world of oppressive odors. You hear it too, the soft, rhythmic patter of falling water, a gentle, insistent percussion on the empty cobblestones. You step out into the village square, no longer shadowed by fear, but bathed in a diffuse silver-gray light. The clouds have broken, and a fine, persistent rain falls, a silent cascade from the indifferent heavens. It washes over your face, cool and refreshing, cleansing not just your skin but something deeper, a lingering sense of despair. The cobblestones, usually dry and dusty, now gleam wet and dark, reflecting the muted sky like 1,000 tiny mirrors. You walk slowly, deliberately, through the deserted square. The rain collects in puddles, creating shifting, ephemeral pools that mirror the skeletal market stalls, the dark windows of the abandoned houses, the crumbling facade of the church. Each drop that falls is a tiny, persistent erasure, washing away the grime, the dust, the lingering visible traces of the horrors that have unfolded here. The very air hums with this quiet, ceaseless work of renewal. You stop near the ancient well, its stone rim dark with moisture. The rain drums softly on its surface, a gentle, natural rhythm, utterly indifferent to the human tragedy it now cleanses. You watch as a rivulet of water, clear and cold, traces a path down the side of the well, carrying with it a faint, dark stain, perhaps an echo of old blood, old tears, old suffering, slowly being dissolved, carried away into the indifferent earth. The silence here is profound, but it's different from the suffocating quiet of despair. This is a natural silence, broken only by the gentle patter of rain and the soft gurgle of water running in the gutters. It's the sound of a world continuing, unconcerned with human suffering, yet also unburdened by human error. The clean scent of the rain is a powerful contrast, a fresh breath in a place that has known only the reek of death for too long. You lift your face to the sky, letting the cold, clean drops trace paths down your skin. It's a baptism, a quiet, almost spiritual cleansing, offered by a natural world that simply exists, untroubled by human questions of divine intervention or abandonment. As the clean scent of rain fills your senses, and the cool water washes over your face, a profound revelation settles upon you. God's silence has not ceased, but the world itself, the natural world, continues its cycle of cleansing and renewal, utterly independent of human prayers or fears. This simple, pure act of nature, washing away the visible scars of plague, asks a haunting question. Does true solace lie not in a responsive heaven, but in the relentless, indifferent, yet ultimately purifying rhythms of the earth itself? This profound natural cleansing shatters more than just the grime. It shatters the very human-centric view of spiritual comfort, leaving you with a raw, new understanding of existence. The cold, clean rain has ceased, leaving behind a profound stillness, a crispness in the air that was absent before. The scent of wet earth and scrubbed stone is sharp, invigorating, an undeniable purity that has, for a time, pushed back the cloying sweetness of decay. You stand in the deserted village square, your boots silent on the damp cobblestones, watching as the last drips of water fall from the sagging thatched roofs, hitting the ground with soft, rhythmic plinks. The sky, a vast canvas of bruised gray, slowly lightens, hinting at a hesitant dawn. The silence here is immense, but its quality has subtly shifted. It's no longer the suffocating quiet of despair, or the watchful stillness of fear. Instead, it feels like a vast, empty space, profoundly quiet, yet somehow pregnant with possibility. It's a silence that no longer speaks of abandonment, but of a profound, undeniable absence. God has not spoken. The heavens have offered no miracles, no answers, no comfort, no judgment. Only this vast, indifferent quiet. You look around the deserted square, the overturned cart, the marked houses, the crumbling church walls. They are still there, scars on the landscape. But now, in the aftermath of the rain's cleansing, they seem less like monuments to catastrophe and more like blank slates. The world has been wiped clean, not by divine hand, but by the natural, uncaring rhythm of rain and time. And in this profound cleansing, a space has opened up, an emptiness that stretches from the sodden earth to to the vast, silent heavens. This is the space. This is the silence that shattered faith, yes, but in its shattering it made room. It cleared the air, not of sickness but of old certainties, of unquestioned dogmas, of the comforting yet ultimately unfulfilled promises of divine intervention. It's a terrifying freedom, this profound lack of an external answer, this absence of a guiding voice. But it is also a freedom. You feel the cold, damp stone of a discarded church bench beneath your hand, its surface rough, unyielding. It's a tangible anchor in a world stripped bare. The heavy weight of uncertainty is still there, yes, but it's no longer paralyzing. It's a weight that pushes you back onto your own feet, forcing your gaze not upwards but outwards, towards the empty world, and inwards, towards the quiet, insistent thrum of your own beating heart. This profound, persistent silence, this ultimate withdrawal of the divine, has created a void. But into that void, humanity must now step, no longer waiting for a voice, no longer hoping for a hand from above, but forced to look to each other, to the earth, to the resilient, desperate spark within themselves. This terrifying space, this silence that stretches from the ravaged village to the empty sky, asks the ultimate question: what will you build in the wake of God's silence? And how will humanity, stripped bare, define itself in a world that no longer listens for a divine voice, but for its own? This silence, in its final devastating truth, has made room for humanity, for its choices, its burdens, and its terrifying, exhilarating freedom.